A boy stands at the beginning of the stairs in front of a large cube that calls his name and announces to him that the skill that has been given to him is called Gacha. In Rizili, the main capital of Rakend, a man rides through the city in a carriage, telling his son that the skills bestowed upon him are truly wonderful. The son thanks his father for his kind words. A boy named Cross Backhurst, the fifth son of an earl, sits in a carriage and remembers that his family's jaws nearly dropped when he told them about his god's dream. Cross reflects on the fact that in their country, when they turn 15, an evaluation ritual is performed in which God bestows upon that person his own skill. The young man watches his joyful father, who tells him that he can already see the church. He thinks that this is the first time in his life that he sees his father so happy. Cross reflects on the fact that after his birth, his mother died. He believes that his life was worth his mother's life, so his entire family hates him, considering him a symbol of evil. He thinks that he is an ordinary sinner who could have been isolated at any moment. But even so, he still lived quite well. Someone breaks him out of his thoughts, wishing him good morning. Cross is slightly startled by the unexpectedness. A long-haired, beautiful girl in a stunning dress stands right in front of him. Cross calls her Alice. She is the daughter of the Earl of Ryfield. Cross says that he heard from someone that she is not feeling well today. Alice tells Cross that on such an important day for her betrothed, she cannot possibly not be present. She asks him if perhaps she disturbed him, but Cross assures him that of course she did not disturb him at all. Cross reflects on the fact that he is still alive only because of such a useful political tool as his wedding. The young man thinks that Alice is a beautiful girl, looks good at first glance, but in reality she is a sadist. He remembers that she has been making fun of him terribly since his childhood. Alice asks if it's not useful to have a skill as good as his. Cross notices her strong killing intent and is sure she's tired. He decides there's a reason why she stopped making fun of him for his gacha skill. He realizes that the harassment may get worse if he starts using his gacha skill. Cross realizes that he doesn't have to be scared forever. Smiling, Cross thanks Alice and says that he hopes that this skill will be useful to her. The girl, not expecting such words from him, blushes. Alice is about to leave, saying that they will definitely see each other again. Cross is surprised that she is not angry at all, because this is extremely unusual on her part. Alice leaves and Cross is called, saying that it is time for his ceremony. Cross believes that these terrible days of his that he has always had to endure will end today. The young man thinks that with his new skill gacha, his new life begins. Someone announces that from now on they will present the Backhurst evaluation ceremony. The man asks Cross to place his hand on a stone monument that stands in front of him. Cross approaches the monument, which is glowing brightly, and touches it with his right hand. The stone monument shows that his skill is called Gacha. The crowd is surprised, saying that it is indeed Gacha. They discuss that there are rumors that this skill can accumulate skills infinitely. Crest's father asks him to show him the Gacha right away. Crest agrees and extends his hand to fulfill his father's request. He opens the screen. Cross thinks it's very bright and thinks about how to share the screen. Cross realizes that he is the only one who can see this screen. Cross calls out to the crowd that he expects to see a demonstration of his skill. Crest announces to the crowd that he now has a screen with the gacha skill in front of him and he can spin it. He is happy that his new life is finally about to begin. He thinks that he only needs to spin the gacha and presses it. He stands there and with undisguised horror begins to realize that his gacha skill does not start spinning even after he pressed it. He looks at the screen and reads that he doesn't have enough points to spin the gacha because it requires 500 points and he doesn't have any at all. Cross is unpleasantly shocked by this. He can't understand what's happening now. Crest wonders what glasses are written there and why it doesn't spin. He thinks that in his dream he was able to spin it. He wonders how he can get the glasses needed to spin the gacha. The father excitedly asks Crest if he has received his skill, and asks him to quickly show it to the entire crowd of people standing waiting to demonstrate his skill. The boy hesitantly tells his father that he can't seem to use his skill at the moment. His father furiously asks what he just said. Two young guys call him. All his brothers come up to him on stage and ask him if he is trying to deceive them all now. Cross answers his brothers that he really saw it in his god's dream. The brothers shout at him why he doesn't play gacha then. Crest explains to them with fear that he does not have enough points to spin the gacha. They tell him in that case to go and earn the points that he needs. The young man frantically searches the screen for information about glasses. He does not understand why no one writes how to earn them and why he was not told about it in his dream. He begins to cry because of such a pressing situation. Father says he has brought shame upon them all. Cross turns tearfully towards father, who says it was not enough for him to kill his own mother, and now he is blackening the Backhurst name. Cross assures his father that this is not the case, but his father demands that he shut up. Alice watches the whole situation in shock. His father calls him a disgrace to the Backhurst family, assuring him that he will definitely not forgive him this time. Alice begins to smile maliciously, hearing the words of the head of the Backhurst family. His father shouts at him that he is banished from the Backhurst house forever. Crest falls to his knees, realizing that he can change nothing at all. The knights pointed 2 spears at Cross's neck so that he could not escape from them. The knights say that he is truly foolish. They ask if he was serious about trying to trick his brothers by making up such a big lie. They say that if he had only listened to them, he would now be living in a prestigious house somewhere. Cross begs them to give him a sword, because if he goes completely unarmed, he will surely be killed by some monster. The knight replies that they were ordered to treat him like a hazelnut, which is what he is. Cross says that the original reason for sending sinners to the lower world is to subdue the demons that live there. Cross claims that he will kill as many of their monsters as possible to restore himself. He says that he wants to make the upper world a safe place for people to live for a long time and asks for a sword. The knight thinks about it and agrees. He gives him the sword and Cross thanks him. Cross teleports away and the knights say that they will probably never see his face again. A teleporter activates in a creepy forest. Cross looks around, realizing that this is the underworld. Cross looks around the forest area and reflects on the fact that monsters live in the lower world, and people live in the upper world, and both worlds are connected by one magic circle through an insoluble gate. They are the only ones in the world. Cross ponders that the transporting magic circles are used to send criminals to the nether world, and they are sent to random places, so it is impossible to return back. He wonders what he should do now. From under a bush near him, animal eyes are looking out. Suddenly, someone attacks him from under his back. Cross manages to dodge and looking closely realizes that the beast that attacked him is a wolf. He sadly says that he had to show up so early. Crest realizes that the wolves are much larger and more ferocious than normal wolves, so they are not afraid to attack even armed people. Cross pulls out his sword and prepares to attack the wolf. He remembers that he was the best in his class at the Knight Academy and that he once even fought a monster. The young man understands that the monsters from the upper world are much weaker than the monsters that live in the lower world. He believes that his swordsmanship will most likely end here. Wolf attacks Cross. The youth first kicks the wolf in the face. Then, when the wolf closes his head, he attacks him with his sword. Cross sees that he has cut his face with a sword, but realizes that the wolf did not even flinch from this. Wolf tries to bite Cross. The boy realizes that in the underworld, fighting is the only instinct. Cross grabs his sword and with a loud cry pierces the beast's head through and through. Cross draws his sword and the wolf falls, knocked down by the attack. The young man breathes a sigh of relief, realizing that he had to move much more than he expected. He looks at his bloody sword, deciding that it was also good and definitely worth this uncomfortable request. Cross ponders what to do with the dead wolf's body and decides that he will just bleed him for now. He remembers hearing that monster meat is very tasty. Suddenly, he notices something. The words 100p appear above the body of the dead wolf. Cross wonders what the P is. He thinks it's when you kill a monster in the upper world but decides that doesn't happen. Suddenly, he realizes and opens his screen. He thinks that this can't possibly be happening. Cross exclaims that his glasses are here. He sees that instead of the 0 he had before killing the wolf, he now has 100. The boy realizes that points can be gained by killing monsters. He says that this means that his failed skill is actually useless only in the upper world, where there are no monsters. Realizing this injustice, Cross gets angry and curses loudly. He screams that if only someone had told him that this skill was difficult to use in the upper world, then he would have come to the lower world anyway. But it would have been much better to come to this world with special equipment and treatment. Crest lies down on the bare ground, watching the clouds through the leaves of the trees. He says that maybe it was all for the best. He remembers Alice, his brothers and his father, and decides for himself that it is too late and he does not want to accept anything from these people. He thinks that he has gone through so many miserable events and humiliations to get what he has and would be very angry if he didn't get the skills. He decides that he will make Gacha work and he just needs to find another monster. He stands and looks at his screen, thinking that he had learned how to survive before, so he finally has hope. He smiles, deciding that he will survive in the netherworld and not die. Meanwhile, in a beautiful, large mansion in the upper world, Alice lies in her luxurious room hugging her pillow. The drooping Cross sits in the dungeon next to his bed when a girl asks him if he is really that stupid. Cross looks up at her, realizing it is Alice standing before him. She says she is surprised he would try to elevate his position with a god's dream. The boy looks at the girl angrily. Alice asks him if he will tell her anything. Cross asks her if it is not wonderful that she will have to break off her engagement with him. Alice replies that she can't say she likes the way he treats her, She claims that she is doing everything she can to save him from here. Cross is surprised by this statement. He asks what she means by telling him that. Alice replies that she means what she said. Alice smiles and says that he is her dog, her toy, and her servant. She states that she cannot just leave him like that. Cross looks at her with tired eyes and asks what if that is the case, then how is she going to help him? Alice takes off her shoe from one foot and puts her foot in front of his face. She orders him to lick her to show her his devotion. She states that then she will return their engagement, and when they get married, they will run away from this place instead. Alice tells him that they will need to go through a ceremony, and promises that she will destroy the Reincarnation family especially for him. She extends her leg and tells him to act and prove his devotion to her. Cross moves closer and opens his mouth. At the last moment, he kicks her in the leg. He screams that she should disappear with her toy and dog, and he doesn't care about obedience. He declares that he is not her servant. The girl is indignant that if he is sent to the lower world, he will definitely die there. Cross replies that if she is finished, then let her deign to leave. The young man announces that he has already decided everything. The girl is angry and is about to leave. She turns around to tell him that he should remember this and that he should just try to come to her with tears after all this. Alice remembers that after this she fell ill and had to go home to rest. Someone asks Lady Ellis who it is. She replies that everything should be in perfect order. Ellis informs her maid, who is packing her things, that tomorrow she is going to meet Cross again and orders her things to be prepared for her. The maid says that she doesn't want to talk about it, but Crest has already been sent to the lower world. The girl is surprised and then screams loudly. In the underworld, Cross cuts down another monster. He looks at the body of the dead wolf and says that this is his second kill. He wipes the sweat from his forehead with his hand and says that it makes him sticky. He looks at the bodies of the many wolves he killed and realizes that there is a large concentration of wolves in this area. He thinks that his Gacha ability is a super rare ability that allows him to have unlimited skills. The young man realizes that in order to spin the Gacha, he needs to defeat monsters and collect points from them. He thinks that one wolf he kills gives him 100 points, and he needs 500 points to use his ability, so he will need to kill at least 5 wolves. Crest recalls that at first he thought he would immediately spin Gacha as soon as he got the required number of points. He understands that if he catches wolves one by one and without any problems, he can easily collect a lot of points. Cross decides to aim for 5,000 points so he can spin some cool Gacha. Cross thinks about what he heard, that the skill light body depends on the strength of the body itself. He thinks that it looks like he is floating above the ground and aiming for his goal and hope. He looks at another wolf he has killed and says that there are 37 kills now. The subjugation is complete. The young man claims that everything is going to lead to him calmly collecting the 5,000 points he wanted, while the sun still lights his way. He opens his screen to see how many points he has collected so far by killing wolves. He is surprised by what he sees. The screen says he has 25 points. Cross exclaims that it is not increasing at all. Cross screams why he has so few points and where they all went. He starts to get angry but tells himself to calm down. He thinks there must be some reason for this. He wonders what the problem with his hunt is and assumes that each creature has its own different number of points. He looks closely at the wolf he killed. He looks at the place where the glasses used to show and realizes that it looks like the interface no longer shows the glasses. He guesses he's been hunting too much. He curses, saying he should have looked at his score earlier. Cross pulls his bloody sword from the body of the slain beast. He sees the inscription of the points he has earned appear above him. Tired Cross says that someday in the light of the sun, he will earn 5,000 points. Cross recalls that after all this, he changed his hunting grounds and killed goblins, and then hunted fanged rabbits. He decides that goblins are easy to kill as they are very weak. Cross thinks about fanged rabbits, deciding that they have the attack of a small wolf, but they are very fast, so it is difficult to hit them with a sword. The boy realizes that since the day he was sent to the underworld, all he has done is fight monsters. He says he imagines how quickly he would have died if not for his skill. He opens the screen and sees that he has collected his 5,000 points, as he originally wanted. Cross is happy that he finally got the amount of points he needed, and decides to see what is there. He suggests that the 3 points of poo are treatment, appraisal, cultivation. He believes that all these skills are very rare and require high levels. Cross muses that everyone usually only gets 1 skill at the assessment ceremony, but he can get all 3 skills. He asks himself what he should do now. He thinks about scrolling here or hiding in some safe place and doing it there. The young man decides he can't wait any longer and presses to spin the gacha. Something falls from above and lands right next to him, causing Crest to get scared. He looks at what has fallen and sees a treasure chest in front of him. Above the chest is written that he should touch it. He checks if this is where he should touch it and presses it. The chest opens its locks and a bright light pours out of it. Several balls fly out of the chest and float in the air. Cross watches the balls flying in the air. He begins to count them and realizes that there are 11 of them. He assumes that these are all the skills. He says it looks like there are different variations of the balls and reaches out to one, noting that it is a copper color. He touches the ball and it starts to glow brightly. Cross looks at the ball and sees different versions of abilities in front of him. He checks to see if these are all the abilities. Cross suggests that this is a change in abilities. He says that he cannot understand only because of this. The young man thinks about how to continue and decides to open the silver ball from the top. The ball opens up abilities such as sword mastery, short blade mastery, and more. He thinks that there are more tempting skills here. He notes that he doesn't know how to check whether sword mastery works on one-handed weapons or not. Next, he chooses a golden ball. Cross exclaims that it gives magical abilities. He claims that with such magic, survival is a piece of cake. Cross says that he will finally move on to the rainbow ball. He is excited, thinking that a skill with 3 points has not yet appeared. The young man reaches out and touches the rainbow ball. The ball grants him the skill assessment. Cross is happy, exclaiming that it's awesome and he'll try it now. He decides that he doesn't want to lose skills anymore. Cross remembers that he needed to imagine the name of the skill in his head. Cross closes his eyes, trying to concentrate and imagines the names of the skill assessment in his head so he can use it. The young man opens his eyes and sees in front of him the inscription, Data Update, which surprises him greatly. Many marks appear in the forest. Cross does not understand what they could be. The marks are everywhere on trees, flowers, rocks, and even animals. Cross claims that this is cool, suggesting that he can appreciate all of this. He touches the fruit's fruit and the tag begins to load. All of the peach's data appears in front of Cross. Cross reads the data carefully and realizes that as the level increases, the number of items that can be identified will increase. He is glad that at level 1, toxicity can be identified. Cross wants to open his data and his hand mark starts loading. His panel appears in front of him and he asks if this is his status. The boy reads that he has 9 available skills and tears well up in his eyes. Suddenly, his stomach rumbles loudly, reminding him that he is hungry. Cross says he is so hungry that he is crying. It is already dark in the forest and he uses his magic skill, creating a small flame with his finger to start a fire. He understands that this is all he can do at level 1. Crest eats the meat of a killed animal that he has cooked. He exclaims that it is very tasty. The light from his fire can be seen in the forest. Crest decides that he will somehow survive the cold. The boy lies on the floor, covered in the fur of the beast. He notices that there is so much to do tomorrow and realizes that the gacha glasses are needed for hunting monsters. He says he wants to improve the base and skill of the doctor if possible. Cross, thinking about all this, falls asleep. Crest dreams of Ellis calling him. She tells him that if it weren't for her, no one would have taken someone like him. She says that he must obey all her orders. She demands that he answer, but he does not turn to her. She screams, repeating his name over and over. Cross wakes up with loud screams. He exhales, realizing that it was just a dream. He is outraged why he sees such dreams when he finally escaped from it. He lies back down and reflects that she was in the aristocrat's school uniform. He remembers that since then, Ellis' true nature has been revealed. Alice thinks she is beautiful. She remembers someone telling her she was like an angel reincarnated. The girl tucks her hair behind her ear and decides she doesn't like it. She thinks it's because she's 100 times more beautiful than some angel. The boy tells little Ellis that she better not mess with him. He explains that it is because he is the child of the devil. Ellis remembers that this is their first encounter with the cross. The boy turns and walks away from Ellis. The girl stands silently and watches him go. Ellis thinks that Cross was the first person who didn't pay any attention to her. The girl clenches her fist in anger and says, well, okay. She thinks that Cross Backhurst will still look at her. He decides that he will definitely be crazy about her. Ellis remembers that the next day she started going to him. The girl tells Cross that today they are going horseback riding. Cross replies that they don't have a horse here. Ellis takes out a whip meant for a horse. She mounts it and yells at him to go faster and start neighing like a horse. Ellis realizes that Cross accepted her and her true nature, so she unknowingly became attached to him. However, she realizes that there was another side to him. At the event, the Cross brothers surround Ellis. They tell her that she is so noble. They claim that she is visiting him on purpose. Ellis asks the sons of House Backhurst who they mean. They reply that they mean Cross. Meanwhile, Cross stands away from everyone in the corner of the room alone. Ellis reflects on how they don't even notice his charm and make themselves look bad. She thinks they are talentless themselves. She wonders if there is a way to put these scoundrels in their place because she feels hurt. Ellis comes up with a plan. She whispers something in her father's ear and he says they'll do it right now. Ellis' father asks the event's guests to turn their attention to them, informing them that his daughter has an announcement to make. The girl says that she is Ellis Leafard and is engaged to Cross Backrust. Cross, his brothers, and all the other guests are shocked by this statement. The girl recalls that after that they started going to a school for aristocrats. She was proud of him when rumors about his abilities reached their faculty, but she could not see him often because they studied in different faculties. The girls watch Cross from the window and discuss how Cross from the knight's house is very cute, but seems to be dating someone. They wonder who he might be dating. The girls notice Cross waving at Ellis and begin to suspect that they might be dating. Ellis, with a sweet smile, announces that she and Crest are already engaged. The girls are surprised by such news. The girl wonders why she told them about the engagement then. Cross stands holding a box of gifts. Ellis looks at him with displeasure. She asks him what he has in the box. Cross replies that they are gifts. Ellis remembers that Cross suddenly became popular with girls. She believes that for them, a love story between a beautiful lady and a handsome man is the best entertainment, and they really like Cross, who behaves like a real duke. Little Elise laughs, saying that she sees that he has become very popular. She winks and tells him not to forget that she is his fiancée. Cross agrees with her. Elise realizes that she was just a little jealous at first. She remembers that she was becoming more confused with each passing day. Elise tells Cross not to talk to anyone other than her. She claims she specifically chose him as her fiancé. The girl screams that he is worthless without her. Elise recalls that the flame of her jealousy burned fiercely and it drove Cross away, because she ruined his reputation at school and he lost his confidence, closing himself off. Elise admits that she thought her goal was to keep him away from others, but in reality she was devaluing him and obsessing over how pathetic he looked. Elise clarifies what she just told her. The maid Elise says that it seems like he has obtained a very unusual skill called Gacha, so he is truly a worthy suitor for her. Elise replies that she thinks she needs to prepare a speech for her performance. She thinks that if this continues, she and Cross will be separated. She remembers being very worried about this on the day of the ritual. The girl was happy when Cross's father announced that he had been banished from the Backhurst family to the underworld. She believes that Cross has painted himself into a corner. Elise believes that after the shame that will stain the Backhurst line for centuries to come, their engagement will certainly be broken off, and when she extends a helping hand to the desperate Cross, his life will become hers. She thought it was supposed to happen. Elise looks out the window, realizing she was wrong. The girl thinks that if he had been a little more obedient, it wouldn't have happened, that they would never meet again. She wonders why and starts to cry bitterly. Behind the door, the maid apologizes for disturbing her rest. Elise shouts at her not to open the door. The maid replies that she understood the order. Elise asks what she wants, and the girl replies that the head of the family wants to give her something. She asks the maid if it was her father. The maid tells her that she was asked to prepare for an audience with King Rakund. The Cross shouts joyfully. He sees the peaches and exclaims that indeed fruit grows in this place. He bites into the peach, savoring the sweet, juicy taste. He claims that all his fatigue has disappeared in an instant. The Cross thinks that this almond tree is twice as big as usual and began to bear fruit in just 5 days. 5 days ago, Cross announces that 25 fish arrows are ready. He looks at the screen, claiming that he now has 11 Gacha skills. He exclaims that he now has 2 rainbow skills. He looks at the skills and is happy that so many new ones have appeared. He notices that the evaluation has gone down, but decides that the level will still rise. The young man reads that the rainbow skill cultivation allows one to shorten the time and enhance some quality of the object being cultivated. Cross takes the bone in his hands and is offered to grow a fruit-bearing Momona tree, notifying him that it will take 5 days. Cross is amazed that a fruit-bearing tree can grow in 5 days. He says that rainbow skills are even more cheaty than he thought. He looks at the screen and says that in these 5 days, he has been focusing on learning skills and finally Gacha. He reports that he has defeated the skeleton and the fairy. Cross spins the Gacha and asks for new skills to come. He receives copper skills, silver skills, gold skills, and rainbow skills. Cross rejoices, exclaiming that he has received the long-awaited skill, healing. He claims that he can make a potion with this skill. The boy reads that the rainbow skill, healing, allows you to make a potion from medicinal herbs and ingredients. Cross realizes that the potion requires ingredients. He remembers that he spent 5 days searching for medicinal herbs, but there are few of them in this place. The young man claims that this has dispelled his worries about injuries and illnesses. He decides that after lunch, he will go to look for a place where there are many medicinal herbs. Cross tries to wound the bull that attacked him, but he fails. He looks at the part of his sword that is stuck in the ground and realizes with horror that it is broken. The fanged bull is preparing to attack him again. He looks at the hilt that remains of his sword and realizes that the bronze sword with a durability of 0 out of 200 is unusable. He curses, claiming that there is very little left. The bull advances towards the young man. Cross decides that his sword's durability was initially low and that it was probably at its limit now. He realizes that against such a monster, he has suddenly dropped to 0. Crest goes over the options of how he can defeat the bull in this battle, but he understands that he cannot use magic at all yet, and fishing and cultivation are useless. Cross gets an idea. He turns towards the bull, deciding that he will engage in hand-to-hand combat and positions himself for the correct strike. He delivers a straight punch straight to the fanged bull's head. The fanged bull turns over from such a powerful blow that Cross delivered. The bull lies defeated by him, and the young man thinks that he is clearly not far from the first level of strength. He did not expect such a strong opponent to come out. An inscription begins to appear above the fanged bull, stating that he received 200 points for killing it. Cross, having read it, is surprised by the number of points that fell from this beast. The young man claims that he usually didn't get more than 100 points when defeating animals. He assumes that the stronger his opponent is, the more points he gets later. Cross realizes that martial arts, even those at level 1, have amazing power. He wants to tell what happened to his hands a few seconds after using this skill, but is abruptly interrupted. He looks at his hand with which he hit the fanged bull, and is horrified when he sees that it is all swollen and bleeding. Cross screams in fear, asking what's wrong with his hand. He starts crying from the unbearable pain and launches his skill. The young man reads that he must take the herb Shio and place it in water purified by magic, and says that he did this. He reads that this potion must be applied to the damaged area. The young man pours this purified water with the Shio grass that he made with his healing skill onto his injured hand and screams in pain. Cross lies on the floor and looks at his hand, realizing that it barely hurts. He thinks that Rainbow's skills are just incredible. The young man picks up the hilt of his broken sword. He decides that the martial arts and pharmaceutics are not of a high enough level to use. He says that he needs to take care of his sword. Cross uses his skill called blacksmith. He reads that he needs to put the hilt of his broken sword on the board, as well as a cow's tusk. He reads that the Juuga cow tusk sword is ready and its attack power is 70, and its stamina value is 200. The young man takes it in his hands, saying that it will be completed in the shortest time and has maximum durability. He concludes that the sword is good, but in battle he learned that one weapon is not enough to win. Cross decides that he must find allies. He thinks that in order to pull off the gacha, he must continue to defeat new monsters, but if such a strong opponent appears in the future, it will be risky to fight alone. He muses that if he has friends, he could take turns keeping watch while one of them goes to bed. He decides that tactics are also born in battle. Cross remembers that when he still lived in the upper world, someone mercilessly kidnapped other people, and if there were several of them in the same place, they would unite with each other and use a spell. Crest stands there, lost in thought, and decides that he will try to find any traces of man. He believes that humanity is an incredibly sinful and savage race. He goes on thinking that it is difficult to make new friends. He decides that generations are changing and everything is changing completely, so he thinks that at least one person will be able to help him. Thinking about his own, he continues on his way, when suddenly he notices something on his way. What he sees shocks him. He wonders if he is really facing a man in armor. He decides that this is his chance, but he does not understand how to do what he has planned. The man dressed in armor greets Cross politely. She confesses to him that she did not believe him when he was ridiculed in the upper world. She asks if everything was as she was told. Crest looks at her, not taking his gaze away. He thinks that no matter what land, they are the same friends. He thinks that she is his only friend. The girl says that everything is as expected. She admits that she never doubted it. The girl takes off her knight's helmet. Crest recognizes her, saying that he did not expect this at all. He thinks that meeting her is more interesting than doing imitation sword fighting in the knight's department, but with her, it is a tough fight every time. Crest holds his own in his hands, asking the girl in armor that it turns out she trained with Ellis together. He claims that, in fact, in applying the sword to her, which he learned, it is quite effective. He tells the girl that he would be interested to see her fight with Ellis. In the upper world, there is a heavy rain. In the castle of Recifal, Ellis shouts loudly and angrily, asking what they are doing here and why she invited her to the castle. Ellis stands in front of a beautiful girl, who is about the same age as her, and yells at her to tell her why she called her to her place. The girls stand and look into each other's eyes. Ellis's look is determined and serious, while the second girl's is rather indifferent. A girl with a hairdo in 2 ponytails on the sides asks Ellis why she is in Recifal Castle now. She decides to be the first to tell her reason for being here, and says that the king has called her for an audience. She asks her if King Recifal has also invited her to the castle. Ellis has been looking at her with a displeased look all this time. Ellis ponders what Mina Missicilian, an illegitimate child of one of the three families with the title of Archduke in the Kingdom of Rakend, the Missicilian family, who obtained an extremely rare skill from the appraisal ritual, has given her. She thinks about how Minu is in the same night studies class with Cross, and can always find a common topic of conversation with him, discussing it with him enthusiastically. Ellis thinks that Minu spends more time with Cross at the academy than she does. Ellis also realizes that Minu Missicilian has a bigger breast size than her. She thinks that she is the girl she hates more than anyone else. Someone, noticing Ellis and Mina, who are standing next to each other, exclaims that it is them. Ellis recognizes the guys who approach them because they are the elder brothers of the Backhurst family. The young men note that Ellis and Mina were also called to the king. Brother Cross tells Ellis that she is charming. Ellis replies that she is, without a doubt. The second brother tells her that Minu encountered a monster in the city and killed it immediately, calling it a noble achievement. He asks if it is worth protecting commoners. The blonde, cropped brother approaches Alice, saying that the talentless Cross has disappeared, and asks her if he, such a brilliant young man, is suitable for the role of her future groom. Another son of the Backhurst family approaches Min, claiming that an audience with the king is deadly boring, and suggests that she run away to go somewhere together to have fun. The reign in the kingdom does not stop. Both girls, in response to the proposals of young men, say that they ask for forgiveness. Alice, with a sweet smile, claims that someone like him would not be suitable to replace Cross. The young man asks again, not believing her words. She asked him not to utter delirious maxims about how he is supposedly more magnificent than Cross. Minu calmly tells the boy that her power is meant to protect the entire people, so whether he is a commoner or an aristocrat is of no importance to her. She adds that, however, if he is in danger, she may change her beliefs. Both girls wave goodbye to them, telling them to excuse them. The angry and humiliated sons of the Backhurst house are left alone in the corridor. In the hall where King Recital is receiving guests, there is a crowd of people. The king sits on his throne in front of the people he has called to an audience, and clears his throat before beginning his speech. The owner of the castle of Recital, the king of the country of Rakend, Recital VII, addresses the gentlemen representatives of the three families of the archdukes, and apologizes to them for having so unexpectedly summoned them all to the castle. Father Cross asks the king what he is talking about, because the representatives of the Backhurst family are always ready to rush to His Majesty at the first call, and Alice has been watching them from the sidelines all this time. Someone in the room brings up the subject of the monster that suddenly appeared in the city the other day. Minu Missicilian pays attention to these words, realizing that the conversation will be about a situation in which she took part. Minu Missicilian's father reports that they, the Missicilian clan, have dealt with this monster. He asks the king if he has any comments to make about this. The king tells him that they have done everything perfectly. King Recital VII announces that he wants to tell them about a letter he received from the Pope. The leader of the knights goes up to the king, and someone from the crowd says that she is as delightful as ever. The girl opens the letter and begins to read the words written by the Pope about the recent appearance of a mysterious monster, which has been spreading fear in the castle town. He writes that he was initiated into the contents of the divine dream and sets it out below. The Pope writes that they should talk about more mundane things instead of divine speeches, and reports that recently there have been more and more frequent days when a huge number of monsters raid cities. The three families of the archdukes exclaim that their country is in trouble. They are afraid of the huge number of monsters that appear in their country. The leader of the knightly squad continues to read the letter, in which the Pope writes that they should not worry, because the gods have already figured out how to resist the attacks of monsters, so they will grant them special skills for this purpose. The Pope writes that below are three people who will have these special skills. The girl begins with the first name. The leader of the knight squad reads that the owner of the skill intercession of the providence of the Holy Maiden is Alice Riefeld. The girl is shocked by this news, not believing that it is really her. Alice's father, the head of the Riefeld clan, praises Alice, saying that she is a good girl. The girl thanks her father. Alice rejoices, remembering that indeed her skill was too powerful to affect the upper world. Alice thinks that suddenly it turns out that this is an extremely rare skill used against monsters. She thinks that today, from this very day, heroic tales about her will begin. The leader of the knight squad continues to read the letter. The girl reads a letter in which the Pope wrote that Minu Missicilian will have the skill Brave Strike. Minu, even after hearing this news, does not show any emotion outwardly. Alice grits her teeth in anger, thinking that it is this Minu again. She resigns herself to the fact that she has a skill for rear support, and if all the nasty, dirty monsters are entrusted to her, then she will be satisfied. She believes that when you work in close proximity to commoners, a sharp increase in sympathy is inevitable. Alice gleefully thinks that her life may end on the battlefield, where she will be cruelly killed. The leader of the Knights announces the third and final person who will receive a special skill. The brothers of the Backhurst family argue among themselves, because each of them believes that he will be the last one on the list to receive a special skill. The leader of the Knight Squad announces that the third and final special skill is called Gacha. Alice, Minu, the Backhurst brothers, and everyone else are shocked upon hearing this. The girl loudly announces that the owner of this special skill is the Backhurst Cross. The head of the Backhurst house realizes with horror what he has done. King Recital states that these three skills have been the subject of discussion before, whether they are special skills against monsters, considering that they were given to members of all three ducal families. The king reports that, according to the Pope's assumption, it seems that in the future there will be people with special skills used against monsters. The man cheerfully says that therefore they have nothing to fear from monster attacks because they will ensure the safety of their country Rakind. Alice, nervously, silently listens to the king's speech. Alice notices that King Recital is smiling. She realizes that the king probably doesn't know where the Backhurst Cross is now. Alice is angry, realizing that this means that she and Minu will have to deal with the monsters alone. The head of the Backhurst house, Father Crest, is so nervous that sweat is pouring off him. Alice thinks that the Backhurst family has done something wrong. The king asks what they said about the Backhurst family. He remembers that they were talking about their fifth son, Cross. She asks what happened to him and where he is now. Cross's father, when they talked about his fifth son, whom he had exiled, flinched in fear. King Recital clarifies that it turns out that the skill Gacha is possessed by Cross of the Backhurst family. Cross's father, nervously, hesitantly tries to lie about Cross's health. He is interrupted by a man who suddenly addresses the king. King Recital recognizes the man who addresses him as Duke Refeld. The Duke says that the Cross of Backhurst will never appear here. The king asks Duke Refeld what he means by saying this. The man replies that he thinks it would be best to hear it from the head of the family. Father Cross trembles with fear when asked to tell what happened. The head of the Backhurst family, stammering with fear, reports that Cross has committed a misdeed. He says that Cross has been banished to the underworld. The king screams in horror, asking again what Backhurst said. King Recital shouts that Cross has, so to speak, earned special favor with the gods and asks what she has done. The head of the House of Backhurst tries to justify herself to the king, saying that Cross has committed a very serious offense. The king wonders what kind of offense it must be for which a 15-year-old child would be banished from his family to the underworld. Father Cross is at a loss, not knowing what to answer the king. The girl steps forward, declaring that Cross has done nothing wrong. Minu reveals that during the evaluation ritual, Duke Backhurst decided that Cross was lying because he failed to demonstrate his skill and banished him to the netherworld. The king asks him in disappointment how he could do such a stupid thing. The head of the Backhurst house shouts at Mina Missicilian in rage, calling her names. Duke Backhurst comes close to Min and shouts at her, claiming that she has interfered in someone else's conversation and even has the audacity to tell them tall tales. Father Alice points out that almost everyone present at the meeting was on the scene at the time. He asks if the letter he recently read from the Pope confirms that everything Cross said was absolutely true. The head of the Refeld family asks Duke Backhurst if it was because he did not trust his own son. The Duke tries to justify himself, saying that it was nothing of the sort. Alice thinks that he got what he deserved. Alice's father approaches the king, saying that before the country reaches a critical point, they, the Refelds, will set out to find the Cross to relieve His Majesty's anxiety. The king replies that this sounds encouraging. Duke Refeld bows and asks King Recital to allow him to give one piece of advice. King Recital asks what advice he wishes to give him. He gives Duke Refeld his permission and demands to speak. The head of the Refeld family adjusts his glasses and offers King Recital to appoint Crest as the head of the Backhurst family if they can return him back to the upper world. Duke Backhurst, who did not expect this, begins to be indignant with a loud cry. Duke Backhurst shouts to Refeld that they seem to be joking if they want to pass the right of succession to the fifth son of the House of Backhurst Cross. Duke Refeld answers him that this is why he said that he wants to consult with His Majesty first. Head of House Refeld says that making Crest head of House Backhurst is necessary, otherwise it will be difficult to bring him back. King Recital asks the Duke what he means by that. The Duke explains that Cross was unfairly labeled a liar, treated like a real criminal, sent to the underworld, and treated so cruelly by his own family that there is a possibility that he will want to take revenge on his country. He adds that therefore, by passing on the title to him by inheritance, raising his position relative to the ancient representatives of the Backhurst family, who had devised an unjust punishment for him, They would give Cross the opportunity to end the war. The head of the House of Backhurst approaches King Recycle, begging him to forgive them. The king asks Duke Backhurst if his purpose in life is to protect his country or if he is mistaken about that. The king announces that since he has been offered the return of the cross on condition that he be given the title of head of the house, he intends to fulfill this condition. Duke Backhurst, hearing this, falls to his knees in despair. Alice, observing this situation, says that she understands everything. She believes that her father, Duke Riefeld, is using her relationship with Cross as a pretext to seize the power of two ducal families at once. Alice realizes that if her father succeeds, he will become more powerful than the king himself. She assumes that in the near future the Riefeld family will even want to get the royal throne. The girl decides that this is a story about how she and Crest will build their wonderful relationship. Alice thinks about it upset, but she decides that it doesn't matter what her father is planning because it might mean she can see Cross again. While the Backhurst family quarrels among themselves over King Recycle's decision, the girl thinks that if she wants to be with him, then she needs to apologize to him for everything that happened. Meanwhile, in the forest, in the lower world, Cross receives a gold skill called Imparting Magic of the first level. The young man assumes that this is a technique for imbuing weapons and means of defense with additional properties. Cross has acquired copper skills, silver skills, gold skills, and rainbow skills. He decides that he will try out his new gold skill, Magic Imbuement, right away. He uses his skill by saying it to himself. The cross reads that the bull's tusk sword is potentially endowed with only one type of ability. It increases power or consumes magical power. The young man thinks that both abilities interest him, but he only needs to choose one. He excitedly exclaims that he will take the Chop Mastery ability after all. He imagines how this skill might work and decides that from the looks of it, it looks like something cool. On the screen, he clicks on the consent to grant his Ox Tusk Sword the ability Chop Mastery. He smells a familiar scent. The young man walks further and comes out of the dark forest and sees something beautiful. He stands on the seashore, watching the waves splash. Cross believes that the sea in the lower world is exactly the same as in the upper world. He notices that the distance is shrouded in fog. Cross walks along the beach and reflects on the fact that the world is covered in fog. This is the common opinion of mankind, and no one knows what is on the other side of the fog. Cross realizes that so many times research has been organized and all have failed. Because the ships did not return back and gradually, everyone stopped even thinking about getting to the other side of the fog. Cross continues walking when suddenly he notices something that surprises him greatly. He sees in the distance that there is a pier. Crest comes right up to the pier. He notices that there are no boats around the pier. The young man assumes that the people who were fishing or earning their living here moved to other places or something happened because of which they could not return. Cross decides that he doesn't care what the cause was. He uses his fishing art skill that he learned earlier. The young man sits contentedly on the edge of the pier trying to catch a fish. He says that he only eats meat and fruit all the time, and sometimes he wants to eat seafood. Crest exclaims that he got a bite right away and thinks it's something huge. A huge monster with a human body and an animal head emerges from under the water. The monster has a weapon in its hands that resembles a spear. Crest is frightened because he did not expect the monster to appear. He realizes that it is a Sahajin. Sahajin points his spear at Crest and attacks him with a loud howl. Crest manages to dodge at the last moment and attacks back, but the monster quickly moves to another location. Crest stands on the edge of the pier and the monster is opposite him, a few meters away. Crest understands that he has blocked his entrance to the pier and you can't get closer on such a narrow bridge. Cross decides that this is the time to try out his newly acquired skill. He uses the Magic Empowerment ability on his sword. Cross attacks his opponent with the skill Slashing Mastery. The youth cuts the monster's body, causing blood to flow out. The youth immediately attacks again, piercing the monster's body through and through. Crest defeats Sahajin. The young man is happy when he sees that he was given 200 points for it. He says that when he levels up, he will probably be able to kill monsters with one blow. He stands on the edge of the pier, looking at the water and decides that with the second level of the Art of Fishing skill, he will be able to catch something decent. More monsters are heading towards the pier. Crest exclaims that there is a Sakajin infestation here. Crest curses, saying that he thought he would finally get his hands on seafood. The cross reads that Sahajins do not contain poison and are edible, but at a satisfactory level. The young man decides that even though it says here that Sahajins are edible, he has no desire to eat them. He remembers that he fished a little more, but did not catch any fish, only accumulated points. The crowd whispers among themselves. A teddy bear has a sign on it that says it is a representative of the House of Backhurst. All those gathered look in surprise at the bear, who sits separately on a chair. The king turns to Duke Refeld, saying that he entrusts them with the search for the cross. The head of the Refeld house answers him that he can rely on him. Someone approaches the king. The current head of the Mezase family, Minu's father, says that they will also help in the search for the cross. King Recycle is surprised, clarifying that the Mezase family will also join the search. The man agrees. Duke Mezase points to Mina, saying that they will even involve the brave Mina in the search. The king and Duke Refeld simply look at them, saying nothing. The people ask who will then defend their country. The king says that Minu's skill, Brave Strike, is an invincible power, and in their absence, a large number of monsters will invade their country and attack. Father Minu replies that the cross in the lower world was in a much more dangerous position all this time than all of them. The head of the Mezase house assures them that in such a situation, they cannot lose a single minute. He asks the king that isn't it obvious what their priority should be now. The king scratches his beard and agrees with Duke Mezase. He says that there is some truth in his words. King Recycle turns to Min, asking her if she agrees with this. Minu, with a sweet smile, tells the king that she agrees and asks him to entrust her with this. The king, charmed by Minu's beauty, says that he relies on her. He announces that everyone is free. Someone asks if maybe he will be allowed to join the search. The girl confidently says that she, Alice Refeld, also received a special skill, and assures that her body has acquired incredible power. Alice reveals that she is also engaged to Cross and clarifies that there is no better candidate to search for him. Minu looks at Alice with a displeased look. The king, after thinking, replies that indeed he cannot argue with that. Alice thinks that in truth she is now an ex-bride. Minu raises her hand and addresses the king, claiming that this is not the best idea. She stands before the king and tells him that Cross always told her something. Minu Mezase quotes Cross as saying that Eddies has driven him into a moral corner with her insolent and rude behavior. Alice is furious when she hears her words. Alice babbles what she's saying. Minu calmly says that if Cross were to run into Alice unexpectedly, he would probably run away in fear, and in that case, getting him back would be even more difficult. Alice exclaims that she should watch what she says. Minu adds that, moreover, in the worst-case scenario, he can take his own life. An enraged Alice covers Minu's mouth with her hand, demanding that she shut up already. Alice tries to take Minu away right in front of the king. King Recycle turns to Alice, asking her if what Minu said is true. A new idea is born in Alice's head. Alice, nervous and stuttering, tries to justify herself. Minu thinks that what he said to her in a private conversation is of course a lie, but it is suspicious. Alice tells the king that it is a fact that she sometimes showed rudeness in communication with Cross. Alice lies that there is a reason for this rude treatment. She claims that although she was engaged to Cross, Minu was constantly flirting with him. The king, believing this, exclaims how dare she, and Alice laughs maliciously. Minu is adamant that Alice's accusations are untrue, claiming that she has always interacted with him as a friend. Minu looks at Alice, saying that since she thought so, it would have been enough to discuss it with her personally. But she, in addition to this, constantly attacked Cross, taking out her anger on him. Alice looks back at her, clarifying that she has given her enough attention. She claims that she didn't even listen to her, so she had to talk to Cross. Minu claims that she never said anything like that to her, but Alice denies this, insisting that she told her clearly and distinctly. The king tries to stop their argument. The girls continue to argue among themselves about whether Alice told her about this or not. King Recycle begins to get angry. The king yells at the girls to stop arguing. The king says he doesn't care which one of them does it. He demands that they simply return Cross back to the upper world as quickly as possible. Minu asks Alice how she is going to get Crest back. Alice looks at Minu, thinking that she is being terribly clingy. Alice replies that she will persuade him and tells him that her father has already prepared a wonderful gift for him. Minu asks if she means that Crest will be given the title of head of the Backhurst upon his return. Alice says that her father was a great idea to ask the king to make Crest the head of the family. Minu sighs in displeasure and replies that it is indeed so. Minu stands in front of Alice and claims that she knows nothing about the cross. She says that what the cross always wanted was freedom. Alice yells at Mina for being so annoying. She says that when he becomes duke, he will have the house and money to do as he pleases. Mina replies that Crest is not interested in such things. Minu smugly says that, however, no matter what she says next, it seems that it will not do any good. Alice gets angry and shouts, asking her what she just said. Minu turns around abruptly and leaves, saying goodbye to her. Alice asks her to wait, but Minu does not react to her words and leaves her. Alice is left perplexed and asks into the void what this freedom is. In the lower world, Cross stands, upset about something. He watches the balls floating in the air and notes that today is already the 30th of April. He explains that April is the deadline, which means that today is the last day to master the skill Gacha. Cross says that he spun the Gacha wheel 11 times a day and got more than one rainbow skill, which is really a lot. He realizes that rainbow skills have a level of 3, and he must also draw 4 of the same skill. Cross clenched his fists. He thinks that since he came all the way, he asks for cultivation and cultivation to be drawn. The skill growing and cultivation is displayed in the ball. Cross smiles, happy about this. He exclaims that he now has all the rainbow skills at max level. The Cross goes into his cave where he lived all this time that he was in the lower world. He says that it turns out that today he will part with her. The young man assures that he will not be bored at all. Cross remembers that yesterday, he used his Gacha ability and finally got the silver skill construction. Cross exclaims that he will fulfill his cherished wish and build his own house. Crest announces that he has already even chosen a place in the forest where his new house will be built. He has collected all the necessary materials for building the house. He surveys the area and plans for it to be a house on a small hill with a beautiful view, a river nearby where he can fish and easy access to areas, research for which has not yet progressed. He opens a screen with a huge number of plans for a house to build and says it's time to get started. He looks at the house plans provided to him. Cross says that his construction skill is at level 1, so the design and size of his house will be modest. He claims that he plans to live alone anyway, so it doesn't really matter to him. He learns that the materials used in construction are delivered in advance, and all that remains is to choose one of them. He is also pleased that the desired layout of the rooms of his house is similarly chosen in advance. After much choice, he announces that he has decided what kind of house he will have. He clicks on one of the house plans that were provided to him. As soon as Cross clicks on the house he has chosen, a small wooden house appears in front of him. Cross stared at the house in shock. He couldn't believe it just appeared right in front of him like that. Cross checks the walls and decides that they are strong enough. He believes that these walls will protect against attacks by simpler monsters. The young man decides to enter his new home. Inside the house there is a bed, 2 windows, a stove, and curtains. Crest goes into the house looking around. He thinks that the inside is also quite well made. He notices monster fur curtains, which have average strength and low sound insulation, and window glass made from coastal sand, which has average strength and low sound insulation. He approaches the kitchen stove, claiming that he has always wanted one. The boy looks inside the stove, saying that if he uses the cooking skill, the food will be cooked instantly, but it will taste slightly worse than food that is cooked by hand. Cross muses that since there is nothing to do in the nether world other than research and earn points, he has taken up cooking seriously. He recalls that outside of the nether world, he has never even tried cooking. Cross lies down on his new bed and is amazed. He exclaims that he now has a bed made from the wool of fanged sheep. He supposes that this bed is even warmer than the one he had in his parents' house. Lying on his bed, Cross turns to look at the calendar hanging on the wall opposite his bed and near the window. The calendar says it is April 4th. Crest jumps out of bed and opens his screen. He believes that choosing Gacha is where it all started. Cross decides that before the next month comes, he needs to check his stats again. He reads that his strength is 130, his endurance is about 123, his agility is 102, his intelligence is about 24, and his magical abilities are 155. Cross realizes that by this time he has already accumulated 50,000 points. He remembers that he has already used 40,000 of the 50,000 and has already used the Gacha ability about 88 times. He notices another important detail. The young man says that he who was expelled because of the loser skill Gacha has a certain number of skills. He looks at his skills and exclaims that there are 30 of them. The screen says he has 30 skills available, including his Gacha skill. He has rainbow, gold, silver, and copper skills. Crest asks himself how he suddenly lost the sense of reality. He says that this is how he built a beautiful house. The young man admits that he can no longer imagine his life without his skills. The Cross falls onto the bed, suggesting that when there is no emotional connection with anyone, the living sense of the world begins to disappear little by little. He suddenly realizes that expert judgment and witchcraft are in the same category. He wonders if there are special skills for taming and raising monsters. Crest looks at the calendar, noting that May will start tomorrow. He assumes that the new Gacha will have such options. The young man is digesting on his left side and says, "What else?" He asks if the circumstances can turn out so favorably for him. He starts to worry, saying that who knows, maybe the next Gacha will have some restrictions. He fears that in the worst case, the points he hasn't used will be lost. Cross decides that he would be better off spending all his points. He says that he might get a notification about this as early as May. Cross claims that this bed is indeed too warm, however. He says that it seems to have been created to turn a person into a useless and lazy creature. In the overworld, at Duke Backhurst's residence, the Backhurst family discusses the events that took place at the appraisal ceremony and the recent audience with the king. Cross's brother scolds him, claiming that Cross has already brought shame on their family twice. Another son of the Backhurst family sarcastically asks him if it's okay for him to say such things, since he is thus calling the next head of the Backhurst family, Cross, a bad name. He shouts back that it doesn't scare him at all. He assures that he wasn't teasing him, so Cross has absolutely no reason to take revenge on him. He says that he would rather take revenge on him because he was the one who made fun of him the most. His younger brother replies that he was just following his orders. The boy asks him what he said he did. The man slams his fist on the table, ordering everyone to be quiet. The head of the Backhurst house shouts angrily, asking who will now go in search of the Cross in the underworld. He claims that this is what needs to be decided first. The brothers listen to their father and stop arguing among themselves. The brothers begin to whisper among themselves. The younger brother says that he will let his older brother go on the quest, because if he ends up in the underworld, it will be the end for him. None of the sons of the Backhurst house want to go on the quest. Suddenly, a boy with long hair raises his hand and addresses the head of the Backhurst family, claiming that he will go to the underworld to search for the Cross. His father is surprised, asking if this is true. Cross's brother Albert, who has expressed his desire to go to the underworld to find Cross, says that he has a secret plan. He claims that they will see that he will definitely bring Cross back. Albert holds a round collar in his hands. He asks the guy standing next to him if this is the servant's collar. The boy answers that it is him. He explains that the one on whose neck he will hang will unquestioningly carry out absolutely all the orders that are given to him. Brother Cresta carefully examines the collar and says that he understands everything. The guy warns Albert that this collar is used against criminals, and Cross might find out that he used it against him. Albert asks him if he is trying to tell him what to do now. Cross's older brother looks angrily at the boy who brought him the servant's collar and asks if he should burn it. Albert stands in front of a huge, ominous gate. He explains that this is a gate connecting the upper world with the lower world, but that the only way to enter is through this tunnel. Two knights stand near the entrance, preventing people from simply passing through. The boy asks Albert to be careful. He says that the lower world is so full of magical power that it not only blocks the ability to move, but also strengthens the body of demons during transformation. Albert replies that he should keep quiet. Albert says that he took 20 knights from the Backhurst family with him to search for the Cross in the underworld. He thinks that he doesn't know whether it will be a goblin or a wolf, but in any case, he is just a kid. Albert believes that there are so many of them that finding Crest is almost impossible. He reflects on the fact that his brothers are incompetent because they have such a wonderful opportunity, but none of them wants to take advantage of it. Albert decides that he is going to use the cross in the servant's collar to gain complete power in Behurst. He shouts to his knights that it is time to move out. They pass through the gates to the underworld with a cry. Cross is sleeping peacefully in his bed. He suddenly opens his eyes, realizing that it is already morning. He looks at the calendar hanging on the wall where it says that today is the 5th of May. He exclaims that May has arrived. Crest opens his screen, wondering what is in Gacha. The screen says that the Gacha summoning has been confirmed and the May celebration has begun. He reads that he has 10,000 points and the April Gacha is over. The young man starts clicking on the screen. Cross is happy, saying that he has 10,000 points, which means he can spin the Gacha 22 times. He claims that if he spins it 11 times in a row, he can get the rainbow ability. He decides that he should try it and presses the button to smoke the Gacha. The chest opens and ability balls fly out. Cross notices that he has obtained the silver skill Domain Evolution Technique, as well as a rainbow skill called Summoner. The young man reads on the screen that the Demon Evolution Technique ability helps his demons evolve, and the Summoner skill allows him to summon his demons to a location of his choosing. Cross clarifies that these skills are useless if he can't control his demons. He reads on the screen that the skill can't be used because he doesn't have any demons bound to it. Cross decides that he shouldn't panic about it. He believes that he just needs to learn how to control demons to do so. He exclaims that the May Gacha has just begun and he is eagerly awaiting news. The young man received the skills Demon Manual, Summoning, and Demon Usage. Cross rejoices and exclaims that he has received all the skills in the set. He reads that the skill Demon Usage allows him to control demons if he defeats them. The young man realizes that with this skill, he will already be able to control them. He remembers that he learned something at the academy about how to make demons join him. The goblin who attacked him falls from the blow of the cross. He trembles in fear before him, waiting for the cross to attack again. The cross attacking wonders what kind of love attack this is. He thinks it is slow and painful. He hits the goblin and thinks that the only way to get the demon to join him is to slowly and lovingly attack him without killing him, and then tell him about how you want him to join you. Cross looks at him with regret. However, he clenches his fist and punches the goblin again. The goblin flies back from his blow. Cross begins to worry if he killed him. Above the goblins, 3 hearts appear in the air, which puzzles Crest. The youth asks what it is. He claims that he has never seen anything like it before. He wants to guess something but stops. Cross decides that it doesn't matter and he needs to hurry. He uses his new skill, demon taming. The goblin suddenly stands up. Goblin became a follower of Cross. Goblin sat down on the ground and asked if he was Gabu. Cross exclaimed that he had succeeded. The boy tells him that he thought he killed him. He wonders if it wasn't him. Gabu only says his name. Crest sits up and exhales loudly. He admits that he is very tired. The young man decides that they will shake hands first. He extends his hand to shake and Gabu extends his. Suddenly Gabu hits Crest on the hand instead of shaking his hand. Crest explains to Gabu that if someone extends his hand to him, he should shake it like this. He shouts that he told him to do it like this and not to hit him. Cross looks at his hand, swollen from Gabu's blows, and thinks that he is clearly not very smart. Cross asks him if he can't remember that. Cross says the word rank to see Gabu's stats. He notices that he has an intelligence of 1. Cross realizes that he is indeed a dumb person. The young man gets upset, saying that he tried so hard to tame him, and then this happens. He perceives someone calling him useless. His older brothers tell him that useless people are not needed in this world, and that he should not forget that they can remove him at any time. The boy looks at Goba, realizing that this guy is also useless. He approaches him, calling him by name. Cross pats Gabu on the head. He declares that they will study. Gabu responds by saying his name with a more cheerful intonation. Cross notices that he always answers the same thing. Cross decides that Gabu is not useless and he will make him into his own excellent warrior. He suggests to Gabu that they try something. She uses the skill Earth Summoning, and Gabu finds himself in the center of a magic circle. Gabu reacts quickly, looking around. Cross laughs, saying that he has such good reactions. Cross assures that with such speed it could be used for surprise attacks. Gabu repeats his name in an excited manner and waves his arms, trying to warn him of something that is bothering him. Cross asks him if he liked it. Cross hears strange sounds coming from the forest. He tells Gabu that he heard something. Gabu continues to try to warn Cross of the coming danger. Gabu continues to say his name and Cross says he understands. The boy decides that he just imagined it. There is a severed head on the ground which belongs to a goblin. Albert curses, asking what is going on. There are dead knights on the ground and Albert yells at them, asking why the goblins beat them. Albert grabs the guy from the observation squad by the collar. He yells at him that he thought he told them to always use the skill observation. The guy frantically apologizes to him. He explains to Albert that due to the high concentration of magical energy, it is very difficult to detect not only the cross but even demons. And when it is used for no reason, they simply waste energy. Albert hits the knight. He continues to hit him and tells him not to make excuses, calling him useless. Albert thinks that he did not expect this to turn out so badly for him. He understands that the knights fought worse than usual this time. He asks the knight he beat up about the number of people with serious injuries. The guy first answers that there are 6 because he counts himself 2, but then changes his mind and says that there are 5. The knight tells Albert that in this battle against the goblins, absolutely all the knights were wounded, so they will need to return to the upper world. Albert replies that they are in a hurry and orders the knights to leave those who cannot move. He says that if they are still alive when he returns, he will take them too. The knights are shocked by his order, but they obey him. Albert ponders how he can return there if they just lost to the goblins. He believes that if he does not bring back Cross, his position will be in jeopardy. The knight shouts to Albert that he no longer wants to follow him. His comrade tries to stop him, but he does not listen and asks to let him go. Albert, hearing his plea to let him go, silently turns around and stabs him to death with his sword. The knights, seeing that he has killed their comrade, scream in shock. Albert slings the bloody sword he used to kill the knight over his shoulder and asks them who they think their leader is. He warns them that they had better listen to him. He looks at them with a threatening look, saying that if they do not obey his orders, the same thing will happen to them as to their comrade. The knight tells Albert that they have found something similar to human tracks. Albert sees a human footprint on the ground. He says that the tracks were clearly made very recently. The knight asks him if these tracks belong to the cross. Albert replies that he does not know what the marks of the cross look like, but that it is about the same size as the marks. The knight declares that he will then follow that path. Cross looks at someone barking with interest and Gabu with fear. They look at their new companion, the wolf. Cross exclaims, which means the wolf has joined them too. Cross opens a screen with his stats and reads that the wolf has an intelligence of 20. He says that he is smart. Gobu shouts his name with a questioning intonation. Cross turns to Gob and asks if he wants him to see his name too. Cross says he will. A sign appears on Gob asking him to give him a name. Cross says that now that they are on the same team, he will feel uncomfortable if they don't have names. He opens the on-screen keyboard and wants to give him a name. He tells the goblin that from now on his name is Goblin. Goblin begins to glow and transform. Goblin becomes a girl with long hair. She is dressed in a skirt and a tank top. Cross is surprised that he has evolved. Cross suspects that this is the effect of the skilled demon evolution technique he received. He decides to check if his status has increased. He hears a bark and turns his attention to the wolf. He remembers that he needs to give it a name. Cross names the wolf Rufuna. The wolf also begins to evolve as a goblin. Cross picks up the wolf, exclaiming that he is so cool. He says that they should do it again. Cross looks at the goblin and the wolf and calls them by their names Goblin and Rufun. The Cross announces that from this point on they will all live together in this world, and they have become his irreplaceable companions. Cross hugs Goblin and Rufuna and says that it is definitely nice to meet you now. All he gets in response is a bark from the wolf and a gabu from Goblin. Cross tells them that it is already dark, so it is time for them to go home. Goblin senses something is wrong. She opens her eyes and she and the wolf find themselves in front of Cross, preparing to attack. Rufuna and Goblin are angry, sensing danger. They prepare to attack. Cross asks them what happened to them suddenly when someone comes out of the forest. Cross notices that there is something there. Cross, seeing the man in front of him, is horrified. He begins to understand. He realizes that this barely audible sound that was earlier was the scream of a man. He believes that the source of this scream was definitely Lore. He looks at the guy with the sword in front of him, thinking that it is Albert, the second son of the Bucharest family. Albert says with a sinister smile that he found him. In the huge estate belonging to the Backhurst family, in the yard, a boy lies next to a small puppy that is already dead. Someone tells him that he is just an impudent owner of some animals. He orders him to get rid of the dog's corpse later. Cross's older brothers leave. Only Albert stays behind to tell him that he apparently doesn't know his place. He lifts the crying, beaten Cross's head by the hair and claims that he is a murderer, which is why he can't get anything. Albert tells his younger brother, Cross, that he is the only one he has ever forgiven in his life, and promises him that he will live under his never-ending wrath for the rest of his life. Albert and his two knights stand in front of Cross and his new companions, a goblin and a wolf. Cross, recognizing his older brother, feels a terrible fear. He wonders why Albert, the second son of the ducal family of Backhurst, is in the netherworld. Albert joyfully exclaims that he has been looking for him for a long time. The elder brother of the Cross begins to approach him, saying that he thought that he had already died in the lower world. Albert claims that this day is the happiest day of his life. Cross, standing where he was, rudely asks his older brother why he came to see him. Albert is surprised by such impudence on the part of his younger brother. Albert asks Cross if he is not glad to see his older brother. He claims that Cross must have been incredibly happy when he saw him. Albert explains to him that he came to the underworld to take him back to their home in the upper world. Cross gapes in surprise when he hears what his brother told him. His brother, the second son of the Backhurst family, apologizes to him for banishing him from the upper world to the lower world. He assures him that it was just a joke. Cross sarcastically exclaims that it was very funny. He tells him that he almost died from such jokes. Albert replies that he is still alive and tells him not to act so cynically. Albert watches his little brother closely, thinking about how this is such an unexpected surprise for him. He thinks about how he is beginning to understand exactly how Cross feels about him now. Cross's face expresses the horror he feels at meeting his elder brother, and his whole body shakes uncontrollably with fear. Albert realizes that his younger brother is clearly not angry with him now, but simply very scared. Albert recalls that he and his other brothers have instilled fear and despair in Cross since his birth. He admits that they made sure that he would never be able to fight back against any of them. The young man decides that although Cross has a very rare skill, it does not matter at all, because if he obeys him unquestioningly, then everything will be fine. He calls his knights, whom he took with him to search for Cross. He turns to them and looks at them with a terrifying look. He threatens them that if even one of them is afraid of this demon of the Cross, he will kill them. The knights, afraid of him, quickly answer that they understand everything. Albert approaches Cross, asking him if he has new pets again. Rufuna, Cross's wolf, starts barking very loudly at Albert as he approaches them. Cross's brother asks him why he needs them since they too will soon die again. Cross suddenly claims that he did not kill him. Albert disagrees, assuring him that he was the one who killed the puppy. He tells Cross that the dog died because he was too weak to protect it. Cross begins to get very angry and wants to answer his brother because he does not agree with him. But the fear that he feels in front of Albert does not allow him to do this. Albert claims that he is irresponsible and therefore will not be able to look after the demons and suggests that they return to their home already. Cross shouts loudly, telling him that he will not return home to the Backhurst estate. Albert, who is about to leave, turns to his younger brother at his cry. Cross tells him that he has already decided that he will live here in the lower world. He states that he wants Albert to go away and leave him alone. Albert calmly replies that this is how it works. Cross stands and looks at his older brother with a look of complete determination in his pleasant decision. Albert sternly tells Crest that he doesn't seem to get it. The determination in Crest's eyes disappears, replaced by a terrible fear of his older brother. Albert yells at him, asking him what he's even saying. He calls him names and claims that Cross should be more respectful towards him. Cross feels a growing panic. His heartbeat increases several times, his chest feels like it is being squeezed, and his head begins to throb with pain. His legs are shaking violently, and he begins to choke from lack of air. Albert asks him what this demon is doing here, shouting that he is already fed up with him. He demands that Cross tell his wolf to be quiet. Cross does not answer, he just stands there and tries to continue breathing. Albert says that otherwise he will shut him up himself by cutting his throat. Cross begins to apologize to Albert, but does so with great difficulty because he cannot breathe. Albert smiles when he realizes that trauma switch is on. He thinks that this is his secret, which he told their father about. Albert reflects that Cross's brain is so stressed that it can no longer think coherently. Cross cannot control his own thoughts. He thinks of different things that do not allow him to think sensibly in this situation. The wolf Rufuna barks loudly at the two knights of Albert who tried to get closer to the cross. She growls menacingly at the knights of Albert, ready to attack them immediately to prevent them from getting closer to the cross, because it is her master. Both knights think that this demon is very scary. However, they remember Albert's words that if they are afraid of the wolf, it will kill them immediately. Cross suddenly shouts loudly to Goblin and Rufuna to stop immediately. Scream, he continues to shake from the fear he now feels because of his brother Albert. He asks them to stop, saying that if they don't listen to his older brother, then he will beat him up again. Then he will beat him again. Albert begins to laugh very loudly and for a long time. He exclaims that the cross tells them the absolute truth. He claims that he simply must obey him unquestioningly in everything. Albert comes close to him and shouts loudly at him, saying that this is all because he is incompetent and not worthy of his life. Cross agrees with his brother's words and apologizes to him. He continues to yell at him, saying that if he ever gets naughty, he will beat him again. Cross is too afraid to look at Albert, so he lets his gaze drop to the floor. He says that it is his fault and he is very sorry. Albert gloats, realizing that Cross has now closed in on himself and become simply perfect. He thinks about how he didn't even have to use the servant's collar to subdue him. He thinks that he was wearing a collar like this from the beginning, which could not be removed. He orders the knights to take him away. The knights put shackles on Cross's hands. They begin to lead him away. Goblin and Rufuna look at him with regret in their eyes. The goblin watches as the knight takes him away and wants to approach him. The knight hits her, telling her not to come so close to him. The knight hits her so hard that she flies back. The goblin lands on her feet and gets angry. She wants to attack the knight who hit her back. Her eyes widen in surprise. She sees Cross walking away from them crying. Cross apologizes to them silently. He thinks about how he said they would be friends from now on and thought he would become a great warrior. He thinks about how sorry he is for being so useless. Goblin gets up and runs to him. She tries to tell him something because she has thought of something. Goblin stands right in front of him, not letting him go any further. Cross looks at her with tears in his eyes. He sees her inspired face and asks what she is doing. Goblin suddenly runs away from him. She hides somewhere in the bushes. Albert says that she got rid of him so easily. He sarcastically claims that the friendship between Cross and Goblin ended so quickly. Cross, upset, wonders if this is what his last memories of his friends will be. He wonders if he will ever see them again, if he will ever learn new skills. He wonders if this is his destiny. Rufuna suddenly grabs Cross by his clothes from behind, preventing him from getting away from them. 3 knights surround Cross and Rufuna, pointing their swords at them. Cross tells Rufuna to leave him alone. He explains to her that if she continues to behave this way, then she too will be beaten. Albert is clearly unhappy with the events that are taking place. Cross tells her to run away from here to another place as quickly as possible. He wants to tell her what his brother did when he was hesitating, but Albert interrupts him, saying that it is simply unbearable. Albert orders his younger brother to kill Rufuna. Cross' eyes widen in surprise and fear. He did not expect his brother to tell him to do this and clearly does not want to do this to his new friend. Cross begins to cry, realizing what he must do. Albert tells him that if he does this, he will immediately admit that he is not incompetent. His brother tells him to hurry up. He assures him that if he does not hurry up, he himself will kill this wolf for him, and he will remain just as useless. Cross reflects on the fact that he cannot kill his friend, the wolf Rufuna. He realizes that if he does not do what his older brother Albert ordered him to do, he will beat him up again. Cross hears some loud and strange sounds somewhere in the forest, and beginning to realize what it could be, becomes amazed. The knight asks what it is, and his companion assumes it is the goblin that escaped from them a while ago. Albert looks around, getting nervous. Rufuna continues to bark loudly. Albert hits Cross so hard that he falls to the floor. Rufuna stands worriedly next to him. Albert yells at Cross that he is useless and asks if he called them here. Albert demands that Cross drive them away immediately. The Cross lies on the ground, and his entire cheek is swollen from the blow his older brother gave him. He thinks about how he knew that Albert would hit him someday. There is a void in front of Cross, and he does not understand what is happening to him. Albert continues to shout loudly at Cross. He is angry and frustrated, but Cross realizes that he does not hear what he is saying to him at all. He reflects that he now feels that his mind has finally become clear. Cross realizes that he also feels Rufuna's warmth close to him and clearly hears a voice that clearly belongs to Goblin. He remembers that he has heard her tone like that before. He remembers the moment when she was speaking, waving her hands, and he then decided that she really liked something. He believes that this is the moment when he heard her in such a tone, and then she spoke like that because she was very passionate about something. Cross remembers how Goblin moved when he was taken away by Albert's knights, and how he said that she had very good reactions and speed. Realizing something very important, he suddenly opens his eyes and wants to call her, but he can't. Cross rises and, sitting on his knees, shouts Goblin's name throughout the forest so that she can definitely hear it. Goblin, somewhere in the forest, hears Cross calling her. The boy rises to his feet. Cross's mind is racing. He thinks about his friends, about how he's scared and will be killed, about how he doesn't want to go home and he can stand up to him. He decides he needs to use his skills and he calls on someone. Using his summon skill, which allows him to teleport his demons to himself. He teleports to Goblin. She suddenly appears near them and immediately attacks Albert. Albert, who didn't even notice how Goblin appeared near them, screams loudly from surprise and fear. The enraged Goblin punches Albert hard in the face. Albert is thrown back by Goblin's blow, colliding with a tree. Albert wonders what just happened, because some monster just appeared in front of him out of nowhere. Goblin runs happily towards Cross, saying something to him. Cross calls her, and Rufuna stands next to him, barking. Cross looks at Goblin with admiration and asks her if she planned this all along. He gently strokes her head and praises her, assuring her that she is very smart. Albert shouts at Cross, who is already leaving, asking where he is going. He demands that Cross look him in the face. His older brother insists that he will fight and says that Cross is not worthy of being a member of the family, assuring him that he is a nobody. Cross turns to his older brother and begins to transform the shackles that Albert's knights had placed on him into weapons. Albert watches this with undisguised shock on his face, because he did not know that his younger brother could do this. Cross makes himself a sword out of ordinary shackles and claims that he has said before that Albert was never and never will be his brother. Albert is nervous, realizing that Cross just made himself a sword out of ordinary handcuffs. Cross points his sword at Albert Backhurst and confidently declares that he is only his enemy. Cross continues to hold his sword, pointing it towards his older brother Albert. He looks at Albert with a confident, determined look, which no longer has a drop of fear in it, as it did before. A very angry Albert grabs the end of the cross sword with his bare hand and says that he understands everything. The sword begins to melt right in Albert's hand. Albert rises to his feet and claims that this time he will finally imprint on his mind the consequences that can arise from disobeying his older brother. He orders his knights to kill this monster at once. The knights stand there confused, for they understand that they are terribly afraid of this demon. Albert shouts at them, why do they continue to stand there and not carry out the order he gave them? Albert Backhurst furiously asks them if they are still knights of House Backhurst. He tells them to follow his every order, even if it requires them to kill someone. The knight, his hands shaking with fear, takes his sword. The two knights are extremely scared, but they attack Goblin and Rufuna. Goblin and Rufun easily defeat all four knights who attack them. Albert realizes with horror that all his knights have been defeated by them. Cross smugly asks his brother if he thought he would be confused if they both attacked them. Cross tells his older brother that his subordinates were alarmed even by the voice of Rufuna and Goblin, and the scream he heard earlier was likely caused by a demon attack. Cross claims that he, Rufuna, and Goblin are superior to Albert and all of his knights in terms of strength. An angry Albert tells his younger brother that he shouldn't be so overconfident. Albert uses his fire skill and creates 2 huge, fiery, magical balls to attack his little brother. He laughs, assuring that they are all finished. Albert tells that his fire magic skill has already reached level 5. He claims that his magic is the best in this world. He says that he definitely cannot lose with it. Albert yells at Cross to get some fire and attacks him with his magical fireball. Cross stands still, absolutely motionless, making no attempt to dodge as Albert's fireball flies straight at him. Cross uses his earth magic skill and a thick wall of earth, slightly larger than his height, appears in front of him, protecting him from the fireball. Albert's mouth dropped open in surprise, clearly not expecting this from Cross. He wonders how many more skills he has that he possesses. Albert decides that he just needs to calm down for now. He believes that no matter how many skills Cross has, there is nothing he can do to defeat his fire magic. He prepares to attack him with his fire magic once more, and tells Cross that it is just a wall made of earth. Albert assures that he will easily break it with his continuous fire strikes. He begins to attack him with an endless amount of fire attacks, trying to destroy the earthen wall that Cross had built to protect himself. Albert is already exhausted from so many fire attacks, but the wall of the cross still does not collapse, although it is clearly damaged by fire. He curses, asking why this wall of earth does not break under his fireballs. Albert asks Cross if his earth magic level is already higher than 5. Cross replies that this is not true at all. He admits to his brother that his earth magic is only level 3. Albert doesn't believe that he has a 3rd level of earth magic. He asks him how that is even possible. Albert suggests that it is another advantage that his divine skill Gacha gives him. Cross clarifies that Albert called Gacha a divine skill. He asks him if that is the real reason he came to the lower world for it. Albert is at a loss for what to answer. Albert admits that this is true. He explains that his Gacha skill was given to him by God himself so that he could save the upper world from the demon's attack. He says that recently various demons have often begun to appear in the upper world, and they say that this is an omen of bad upcoming events. Albert kneels and bows before Cross, but a wall of earth separates them. He begs him to come home with him so that they can save the upper world. Cross removes his wall and watches his brothers please. Albert is angry because he thinks that bowing down to this useless creature is the most humiliating thing he has ever done in his life. The cross begins to approach him, and Albert decides that he needs to be patient for a while. He thinks that all he can do is wait for the right moment to put the servant's collar on him, which will completely subjugate him. Cross asks Albert to look at him and calls him his brother. Albert looks up at Cross in shock and waits for him to say something. Suddenly, Cross stabs Albert in the shoulder with his sword. His brother starts screaming in pain. Cross tells him that he is only in the underworld now because they, his family, banished him here. Cross continues to press down on the sword that pierced Albert, making the wound even deeper. Cross states that he does not care what happens to him. Albert screams loudly that it hurts, but Cross is in no hurry to pull his sword from his shoulder. Albert wonders if Cross is serious about killing him. He realizes with horror that he might kill him now. Cross pulls his sword out of Albert's shoulder and he holds his hand to his wound to stop the bleeding. He asks Albert what that look is like. Cross asks him if he really thinks he'll trust him after that. Albert says that their father is very sorry for banishing him to the nether world. Albert claims that his father said that he would give him the duchy, so that all the power and possessions of the Backhurst family would be in his hands alone. Cross stabs Albert again with his sword, but this time in the leg just below the knee. Cross replies that he does not need their duchy. Cross thinks about what he is doing. He thinks that if Albert's leg is damaged, he will never be able to get back to his home. Cross, with a crazy smile, thinks about what else he can do to him. Albert begs him to stop. He begs for help, but there is no one around. Cross decides that it would be better to kill his brother Albert right then and there. Suddenly, someone from behind pulls him by the clothes, thereby stopping him. Goblin stands behind him, pulls him by the jacket, and says something to him. Cross begins to come to his senses. He uses his skill, which belongs to water magic called Karma Master, and douses Albert with water from head to toe. Albert does not understand what Cross has done to him and assumes that it was some kind of poison. Cross turns and leaves, telling him that he has lost. He orders him to return home to the upper world and report his defeat to them. Cross tells his older brother not to mess with him again. He promises that next time he will definitely not spare him. Cross believes that if he kills him, he will be no different from him. He decides that he is no longer Cross Backhurst, but simply Cross. He happily tells his friends, Rufuna and Goblin, to leave. Cross, Rufuna and Goblin leave, leaving Albert, who is still sitting on the ground alone. He begins to laugh hysterically, evilly. Albert thinks that Cross is being unreasonable. He thinks that Cross really thinks that he has defeated him, but he has another trump card. He pulls out of his pocket the servant's collar with which he wants to subjugate him. Albert notices that he has turned his back on him. He is about to put a collar on him and thinks that Cross will obey him and regret it for the rest of his life. Suddenly, several goblins attack him from above. They fall right on top of him, knocking him to the floor. Cross turns around at Albert's scream to see what happened to him. Albert asks what the hell is going on. He yells at them to let him go. The goblins begin to strip him of his clothes. Albert yells at them to stop. He asks them why they are stripping him and if they think they can get away with it that easily. The goblins pick up two huge boulders and approach Albert. He asks what kind of rocks they are and asks them to stop. The goblins drop the rocks on him and he screams loudly. The goblins crush Albert's legs by throwing heavy rocks at them. Albert cries in pain and swears loudly. Cross, watching this, remembers something he learned when he was at the academy. He reflects on how goblins during their mating season may attack a member of another race if that member is of the opposite sex. The goblins pick up Albert and leave. Cross is nervous, wondering if they might attack him too. One of the goblins that attacked Albert turns around and gives the goblin a big grin, giving him a thumbs up. The goblin, noticing her, also gives her a thumbs up, smiling happily. The goblins carry the loudly screaming Albert into the forest. Cross says he doesn't even know if this is a good or bad ending. He sits down on a stump, tired from all the events of the day. Goblin and Rufuna bring Cross some fruit. Rufuna hands him a handful of grapes and Goblin a peach. Cross asks them if they picked all this for him and thanks them. He eats the peach that Goblin brought him and thinks about how his brother called his gacha skill divine. He confesses to his friends that he thought his gacha skill was hellish and never thought it could save the upper world. He wonders what would happen to the upper world if he wasn't there at the time. He thinks that if the demons had attacked them, Alice would hardly have been able to do anything. Cross decides that he genuinely feels sorry for Mina because she is dealing with her alone. Goblin and Rufuna start to get upset and Cross apologizes to them. He tells them not to be afraid because he is not leaving them. He admits to them that he is sorry that they had to go through all this. The young man looks at Goblin and says that it seemed to him that the woman Goblin gave her some kind of sign. Goblin pretends that she did not understand what Cross was telling her. She turns away from him and covers her face with her hands in embarrassment. Cross gets up from the stump and pulls himself up, saying that this day has been very long for him. He smiles and suggests that his friends return home. Rufuna and Goblin happily agree to his offer. Suddenly, somewhere in the forest, there is a big explosion which Cross and his friends noticed. Then they heard a loud sound from this explosion. Cross doesn't understand what happened in the forest near them and assumes that it could be a monster. He says that it's not good. The young man admits that he wants to go home as soon as possible and that he doesn't really want to get into trouble right now. He decides that he still needs to take a look at it with his skills. Cross closes his eyes and concentrates to use his skill called All-Seeing Technique. With this technique, he sees a cow in the distance, preparing to attack the girl. Cross's head widens in surprise. He realizes that there is a person there. Cross reflects that he has some strange feeling. A girl in the forest is breathing heavily from fatigue. She stands with a small sword in her hands in front of a huge cow that wants to attack her. She swings her sword with all her might, trying to keep him away from her. However, she drops her sword to the ground from exhaustion and is no longer able to fight him back. The cow moos as it attacks the girl. She closes her eyes, thinking that this is the end for her. Suddenly, she hears a sound and opens her eyes to check what it was. Cross is standing in front of her with a sword and holding off the cow's attack. Cross, holding the cow with his sword, turns slightly towards the girl. He says that he will help her and asks her if she understands him. The girl replies that she understands, and Cross says that this is excellent. The boy calls Goblin and Rufuna and asks them to help him. They come and together they defeat the cow, for which he received 200 points. The girl thanks them for their help and Cross replies that everything is fine and not worth the thanks. He asks the girl that she seemed to be feeling dizzy. Crest asks her if she is okay. The girl is shaking all over and says that she actually feels bad. Cross notices that she is pale. He asks her to be patient for a while and uses his skill expertise. Many screens open before him, warning him of danger. On one screen he reads that she has been poisoned with a deadly poison. He sees that she has 2 minutes and 42 seconds to live. The girl falls to the ground, unable to stand any longer. The Cross tells the girl to hold on. He says that he will make a medicine for her right now that will cure her. He lifts the girl from the floor and brings the glass to her lips. He tells her to drink it, assuring her that it is an antidote and that it will definitely help her. The girl drinks the entire glass and immediately begins to feel better. She says that the antidote was delicious and her unpleasant feeling disappeared. The boy replies that it is just great. Cross examines her carefully, wondering if she is really human. The girl admits that it is the first time she has tried such a delicious medicine. Cross realizes that he did not sense any human or demonic energy when he used that skill. Thinking about the situation, he awkwardly asks her if she is human. The girl carefully removes the hood from her head and Cross's eyes widen in surprise. The girl has sharp, goblin-like ears and small horns on her forehead. She asks Cross if she looks human. Cross stared at the girl in shock, not knowing what to answer. The girl, with a smile on her face, explains that she is the queen of the goblins. Cross, hardly believing what he heard, asks again if she is the queen of the goblins. The girl answers with confidence that this is exactly it. Cross reflects on how sometimes non-human beings are born with certain mutations that give them special abilities, and these are called kings or queens. And their purpose is to continue and protect their kind. The young man reflects on what he learned about all this when he studied at the Academy for Aristocrats. The girl, feeling shy, hesitantly says that she has one important request for him. She looks at him with pleading eyes and asks him if he could help her save her home village. Cross asks her what exactly she means by asking him to help save her village. The Goblin Queen replies that there is a village at the foot of the mountain where she lives. She says that today they were suddenly attacked by some poisonous creatures. She says that her village managed to get rid of them, but many of the villagers still managed to get poisoned by their venom. She bows her head and asks Cross to save them. With regret in her voice, the girl says that all those sent to the villagers will die if they do not help them in time. Cross thinks about the girl's request. The Goblin Queen anxiously awaits Cross's answer to her request. He tells her that it is too dangerous for them to move through the forest in such darkness. Cross uses his light magic skill and a small orb appears above them, floating in the air, glowing brightly to light their path. The Goblin Queen looks at the glowing ball in shock, thinking that it is very bright. Cross asks how many of her villagers were poisoned. The girl replies that she thinks about 10 goblins were poisoned. Cross scratches his chin, repeating her words about there being 10 dispatched goblins in the village. He tells her that they will need to acquire some ingredients for an antidote to the poison along the way. The Goblin Queen asks him what it means he will help them. Cross replies that he sees no reason to refuse. He confidently promises her that he will save the inhabitants of her village at any cost. Cross turns to Goblin and Rufun, asking them if they would mind walking around a bit longer. The girl is deeply touched that Cross has agreed to help her save her village. The girl sincerely thanks Crest. She claims that she will never forget his kindness towards her in her life. Crest, with a sweet smile, replies that it is not a big deal. Crest says that he will have to ask her for something in return. The girl assumes that he wants to ask for land and labor. Crest says he would like to make a new base in their village and for them to clean it up in his absence. He says he will pay and asks what she thinks. The Goblin Queen responds enthusiastically that he should leave it all to them. She says that she is sure that everyone in the village will be happy to see them. Cross suggests that they set off on their journey. Cross remembers that this is how they introduced themselves to each other. He asks the girl to tell him her name. He tells her his name and introduces his friends, Goblin and Rufuna. Cross asks the girl her name. The Goblin Queen replies that her name is Livia. She says that she is not very strong, but she will be happy to work with him. In the bathhouse, the girls are discussing that Albert Backhurst recently went to the underworld. One of the interlocutors does not know which Albert they are talking about. Minhu explains to Alice that Albert Backhurst is the brother of Cross, her former fiancé. She asks her in surprise that he didn't know about it. Alice replies that she is not interested in anyone except Cross himself, adding that the word former is unnecessary. Minhu says the Massilian family planned to send troops to the underworld, but protecting the upper world became a priority. Alice wants it to stop soon. Alice asks if Albert Crest has returned to the upper world. Minhu replies that they have lost track of him. Alice asks Minhu if the report she just received has anything to do with the Backhurst family. Alice thinks about how it turns out her Cross is alive. She admits to herself that she is glad about it. Alice asks Mina why she is so tense. She says that they can take their time, because the chosen ones from the Riffeld army will definitely return Crest back to the upper world and asks her if she agrees with her. Minhu asks why she should care. She claims that he won't come back no matter what they do. Minhu admits that her only concern is that life in the lower world is extremely uncomfortable. Alice asks her if she is going to change places with Cross. She clarifies with Minhu that everything is not so simple down there. Minhu replies that Alice is absolutely right. She says that if she does this, she might never be able to go back. There is a bag on the ground in the forest. Cross says that it contains 10 needles of a poisonous bee and 5 fangs of a poisonous snake. He says that he thinks that this will be enough for an antidote to the poison. Livia bows and thanks him for helping her gather materials. She says she left everything on them. Cross replies that since she was just sick, she doesn't have to worry. He says that Goblin and Rufuna wanted to fight. Livia shows them the way and they head to her goblin village. Cross says that he has never had such a painful experience in the upper world, but now it is all over. Crest says that the gacha skill is really good. He says that to change that, he needs to continue enslaving monsters. He admits that he often finds it difficult because there are skills that he can't use alone. Livia says she wants to see Cross use his gacha skill. She announces that she can already see her village. Goblins in the village are looking for Livia. A goblin spots her and tells his friend to look that way. Livia runs to the goblins and they say that they are glad that Livia is safe. The goblins scold her for disappearing from the village so suddenly. They ask if she understands how worried they were all. Livia apologizes and points out that she did leave them a note. They yell at her, saying they were so worried about it. The villagers ask her what she was thinking when she decided to go there alone with the poisoning. Livia tells them that they can lecture her after this, even more so. She tells them that this man cured her of poisoning and points towards the cross. The goblin asks what kind of savior performed this miracle. The goblins start shouting that it is a man. They ask what a man is doing in their village. Livia politely asks the goblins to calm down. She explains that it is not just a man but her savior named Cross. The goblin reminds Livia that humans have banished them to the underworld. Livia replies that the past cannot be changed and that their top priority now is saving the lives of the villagers. The goblins agree with her and tell Cross to go to the place where all the villagers lie who were poisoned by the creatures that attacked their village. The goblins poisoned lie on the floor in terrible agony. Livia approaches the goblin, a man, calling him Gobzo. He wants to tell her something, but he interrupts. Livia gives him a cup with an antidote and says that everything will be fine. She asks him to drink the contents of the glass. Gobzo drinks the entire glass of antidote in one gulp. Goblin looks at himself, not believing that he feels okay. Goblin girl screams that they are okay. She jumps into his arms and says that she was so worried about him. Goblin boy claims that this is truly a miracle. The goblins approach Cross and apologize for the disrespect they showed him when he first came to them. They say that he cured them all, so he is the true savior of their village. Livia turns to the goblins and tells them that once they've finished healing them, they'll move on. She asks Mobzo to get some rest herself. The goblins surround Livia. They ask if it was her. They say she always does that and add that this time it was too selfish. Livia starts to panic and apologizes to all the goblins. Livia and Cross are sitting in the village house. Livia says that it is her house and there is also a place for guests, so he can settle there. Livia admits that she would really like to throw him a welcome dinner, but she must take responsibility for leaving the village. Cross says he is grateful that she lent him the bed. Cross claims he is impressed not only by the exterior of the house, but also by its interior. Livia notes that the bed is simply fallen leaves from the trees. He looks at Rufuna and Goblin, noticing that they are all fast asleep. He decides that he should lie down too, otherwise he has nothing but a fight all day. He says he needs to take a break. Cross uses his item creation, potion, and water magic skills to create a glass cup and an energy potion. Cross drinks the potion and thinks about how skills won't activate unless you hurry up with their names. He remembers how he made the sword and thinks that if he looks back on it now, he can't afford to think about item creation. He notices two burning candles not far from him. He closes his eyes and uses the skill Extinguish Fire. Both candles go out instantly, and Cross realizes that everything is unchanged. He decides that it is time for him to sleep and lie down on his bed of fallen leaves. Cross ponders that there are many terms he doesn't know the meaning of, such as gacha, skill, demi-human, demon, and netherworld boundary. The next day, the goblins in the village are surprised by something. They say it's cool. Cross builds a house in their village with his skill and tells them that the house is built in an instant, and the structure and complexity is the same as Libya's. Cross says that, by the way, he is thinking of rebuilding their houses, which were damaged during the attack. He asks them if it is okay if they are the same. The goblins nod their heads animatedly in agreement. Crest asks them if they know when these creatures might attack the village again. He restores the damaged houses. The goblins thank Cross loudly and Livia turns around upon hearing this. She approaches Cross and tells him that he is truly amazing. Cross replies that he simply has that skill. He notices that Livia is holding a cooking knife and asks her if she is cooking now. The girl replies that she is giving him a helping hand. On the table next to other food lies a crab. Cross says that it is a baby crab and will be especially tasty if you make sashimi out of it. He adds that they can make a wonderful soup from the remains of this crab. Livia asks him again about sashimi and soup because she doesn't know what it is. She asks Cross what it is. The goblin girls ask each other if they know such dishes, but no one understands what it is. Cross pours them some soup into a cup and tells them that when meat is cooked this way, it develops flavor and salt should be added. Livia asks again about salt and says that she didn't know such a thing existed. Livia tastes the prepared soup and exclaims that it is very tasty. She says that it tastes simply superb. Cross tells her that he is glad. Livia claims that he knows a lot of things, and in addition, knows how to handle an iron cup that stands on a fire. She admits that no one in the village even suspected this. Cross notices a goblin using his hands to pour water on another goblin. The goblin, who is washing himself under the stream of water, shouts at him to regulate the temperature of the water better. He asks him to be quiet, as it is difficult for him to concentrate in such noise. Cross asks Livia if the goblin can use magic. The girl replies that he can. She explains that they can use some other magical skills. The girl watches the goblins and adds that, however, this goblin is the only one in their village who can use water magic. Cross says that they can then use a bath to reduce the load on their mage. The girl doesn't understand what Cross is talking about. She asks him what a bath is. Cross uses his blacksmithing skill and creates a small bathtub. He points at it and says, for example, that's what a bathtub looks like. Livia looks at it admiringly, saying that's what it is. She asks Cross how to use it. Cross, displeased, wonders what is wrong with this village. Night falls and Livia's house is illuminated only by the light of the crescent moon. Cross asks Goblin and Rufuna if they both live in a kennel like this. Cross says that they really are monsters after all. He wonders if they will calm down in such a quiet place. Cross lies down on his new bed and says that he hasn't slept on such a soft bed for a long time. He claims that he feels like he's floating in the air. He remembers sleeping on a bed made from fallen tree leaves and thinking that if Livia allowed him to rebuild her house, he would want a more comfortable bed. Cross muses that sashimi and soup are unusual things for the people of this village. He decides that he doesn't want to think about them with prejudice, but it's just weird. Livia asks Cross if he is still asleep. The young man replies that he is not yet, and Livia carefully goes into his room. She comes into his room and stands opposite his bed. Cross, seeing her, immediately jumps up from the bed and looks at her with undisguised shock on his face. An embarrassed Livia stands before him in a very revealing outfit. Cross asks her, puzzled, what happened. Livia bows to Cross and says that she, as the head of this village, would like to thank him for everything he has done for them. Livia claims that thanks to him, the standard of living in the village has increased significantly. Cross nervously replies that they still have a long way to go. Livia stands up and says that she is the leader, so she has a duty to protect the village. She admits that this cannot go on any longer or she will be the cause of their deaths. Cross, nervously, tells her not to be so pessimistic. Livia climbs onto his bed, telling him that she has one request for him. Cross is confused by Livia's actions and wants to tell her something, but the girl interrupts him to tell him about her request. Livia, the goblin queen and head of the village, asks Cross if he could marry her. Cross gapes in surprise. He can't believe the proposal. Livia moves closer to Cross. He begins to realize why she is dressed so revealingly. Cross sarcastically thinks that there is nothing wrong with being alone in bed with a guy at night. He thinks that this is not something they teach in noble houses and is surprised that she wants to do such a thing. Livia is shaking with fear and hesitantly suggests to Cross that they seal their marriage agreement. Livia falls onto the bed and Cross calls out to her, worried. He asks her if she is okay. Cross assures her that he will not force her to do anything. Livia, disappointed, states that she cannot. Cross breathes a sigh of relief. He tells her that she doesn't have to do anything. He assures her that if she has any problems, she should just tell him about them. Livia sits with tears in her eyes after sharing her concerns. Cross asks if their problem is the alliance with the werewolves. They sit on Cross's bed and Livia sadly replies that the union is just a name, because in reality, they want them to be completely under their control. She explains that they also seem to be in crisis due to the recent monster outbreak. So they are in dire need of offspring from goblins who have the ability to mate with other races as well as their own. Livia explains that if things continue as they are, the werewolves will soon take over completely. Cross begins to understand that this is the reason for the wedding that Livia proposed to him. Cross gets up from the bed and apologizes, saying that he doesn't like arranged marriages and the like. He declares that they will not have a wedding. Livia remains sitting on the bed, upset, because she thinks that her village is finished. Cross throws his jacket over Livia. He says that he cannot turn a blind eye to the fact that she and the other goblins are in a difficult situation. He confidently declares that he will help them. Livia, touched by his kindness, thanks him with tears in her eyes. Livia jumps out of bed and hugs Cross tightly, thanking him. Cross, feeling embarrassed, asks her if she could get dressed. Livia says she's sorry he saw her like that. She admits she doesn't wear it and tells him not to think badly of her. He tells her not to worry. Cross thinks to himself that this was a very radical outfit. At this time, the girl changes into her usual clothes. Cross remembers about clothes. He asks Livia if she is interested in clothes or something like that. Livia replies that if you think about it, she doesn't have much interest in it. She says that in the past there were craftsmen who did it, but now there are none, so there is no one to sew clothes, and then the interest in it began to disappear in the village. Livia says that she means that her clothes are inherited from her ancestors, so she has nothing to wear them for. Cross muses that they are not very knowledgeable about it, although they know how to work with weapons and farm tools. Cross realizes that they have no continuity of technology. He thinks that there are many technologies in the upper world other than weaponry that can be learned. Cross realizes that he does not know the reason for their degradation, but if this continues, the clan and village will die out. He calls for Livia. He uses the tailoring technique skill and hands her new clothes, asking her if she would like to try them on. Livia changes into the new clothes Cross gave her and looks at herself. She says it's very nice. Cross says he's glad she likes it. Livia asks Cross if she can keep it for herself. The young man replies that of course she can. Livia thanks Cross and promises him that she will keep this garment for the rest of her life. The next day in the village, in a special place, Crest, Livia, Rufuna, and Goblin are sitting waiting for the werewolves. The werewolf king named Orpheus approaches Cross and Livia. He tells Livia that he is glad she came to him. Orpheus and Cross look into each other's eyes with determination. Orpheus sits down opposite them. Livia tells Orpheus that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The werewolf king suggests that they return to the topic of their conversation. He assumes that if she came here, it means that she has agreed to their union after all. Livia confidently replies that she did not agree and declares that she refuses to talk about it. Orpheus is surprised and says that he seems to have misheard her. The king of the werewolves offers to repeat everything once more, assuring that it is for certainty. He asks again if she came to him because she finally agreed to an alliance between the werewolves and the goblins. Livia also resolutely replies that she did not agree to this alliance. She reminds that as she said earlier, she refuses to talk about it. Suddenly werewolves surround them from all sides. Orpheus says that there is nothing to be done then. He goes out to his village and shouts to his villagers to take their weapons. He announces that they are going to the goblin village. Cross approaches Orpheus and asks him to wait a moment. The werewolf king asks him who he is. Cross tells him his name and that although he is human, he is indebted to the goblin village for his own reasons. The crowd of werewolves begin to discuss that there is a human in front of them. They are interested in what he is doing in the underworld. Cross tells Orpheus that they are not here to fight them. He declares that they want to make an alliance with them, but only on equal terms. The king of the werewolves asks again what equal conditions he is talking about. Orpheus claims that proud werewolves are no match for some goblins. The werewolves support their king's words and offer him to kill them all. The werewolves that surrounded them begin to slowly approach. Orpheus notices Goblin and Rufuna standing ready to fight the werewolves. He thinks about that goblin and wolf. Orpheus calls them and asks who gave this monster a magical name. Cross is in no hurry to answer the king's question, thinking about what he means by a magical name. Livia exclaims that it was of course Cross. She claims that unlike the others, he has many different abilities and for him, giving magical names to demons is like eating breakfast. Cross whispers in Livia's ear to take her time and asks her what a magical name is. Livia asks in surprise that she gave it to two beings, and he himself does not know what it is. Livia explains that a magical name is a special name given to specific beings under certain conditions, and it is said that the person who possesses such a name is given enhancements to various abilities, so that the result can be felt immediately. Cross asks the girl if Livia is also a magical name. Orpheus tells Cross that he will consider him a representative of the goblin village. The werewolf king states that he is therefore challenging him to a duel. Orpheus proposes that if he wins the duel, the goblins will follow them and only they will give them magical names. Livia exclaims that this agreement is one-sided. Cross suddenly interrupts Livia and says that it is okay. He asks the werewolf king what will happen if he wins their duel. They stand opposite each other, and Orpheus replies that he can then do whatever he wants. He declares that it is time to stop the empty talk. Orpheus shouts that he, the werewolf king and the goblin representative, Cross, are declaring a duel. Livia apologizes to Cross. He asks her what she is apologizing for. Livia says that as a result all the blame fell on him. Cross tells her not to worry. He claims that her name was a bargaining chip and it was good that it did not come to war. Cross admits that he does not want to be unreasonable. He tells Livia that he cannot stand being exploited unilaterally. She takes his hands in hers and addresses him. Livia looks at Cross with a determined look and wishes him luck in the fight. Cross and Orpheus stand opposite each other with swords and the duel begins. Orpheus attacks Cross from above, but Cross notices him. Orpheus makes a small crack in the ground with his sword but does not hit Cross. He attacks him again, but Cross dodges all of his attacks. The werewolves watching the fight ask why he avoids all of their king's attacks. They exclaim that he can't do anything about him anyway. Orpheus shouts that it is useless if he intends to wear him down, stating that Cross seems to greatly underestimate the physical strength that wolves possess. Cross dodges another of his attacks and thinks that it has been a long time since he fought with swords, but his body remembers what he was taught in the aristocratic school during fencing lessons. The young man is thinking that he shouldn't rush too much, that he should be calmer and regain full control of the situation. Orpheus attacks him with a loud cry. Cross notices that there is a chance here and uses his skill martial arts. He punches Orpheus in the hand that holds his sword. Orpheus feels terrible pain from his blow and his hand starts to bleed. Cross attacks Orpheus with a sword, but he manages to dodge. Cross takes aim and attacks Orpheus. The young man points his sword slightly to the right of Orpheus' head so as not to kill him. Someone announces that it looks like they have a winner in the duel. The werewolves discuss that it cannot be that King Orpheus lost to him. Orpheus closes his eyes and tells Cross to kill him because now he is too ashamed to live. Cross closes his sword to his shoulder. He asks Orpheus if he didn't say that if he won the duel he could do whatever he wanted. He claims that it's because he wants Orpheus to live. Cross says that he will live and that he will make an alliance with them, the goblins, and of course that the alliance will be on equal terms for everyone. Cross claims that his shame is not in remaining alive, but in the fact that he chose to leave his people and die first. The werewolves cry and shout that it is true. They say that he is the only one they consider to be the rightful heir of their line. They ask how they would live without him if King Orpheus abandoned them. Orpheus rises to his feet. He is embarrassed by the attention and punches the nearest werewolf, ordering them not to show him their weakness. He bows before Cross, calling him his boss. Cross doesn't understand what's going on. Orpheus states that if he wants to use him in any way, he would like to be his sword. Cross, not expecting this, asks him to wait a little. Orpheus shouts to the werewolves that from today on, Cross is their boss. The werewolves kneel before Cross. Cross asks them to give him something to say. He declares that he is not going to be their leader. The young man wonders if it is so easy to forbid them to consider him their boss. Livia stands behind him and calls Cross. Livia admits that she was also impressed by what he said earlier, so she will also swear allegiance to him. Cross realizes that Livia is there too and wonders why everything is happening so fast. The werewolves shout that Cross is their chief, their leader. Cross stands with a displeased face, thinking that they are all so simple. Cross says that he is not going to be their boss. He adds that if the werewolves and goblins sign an alliance like this, it will be justified and then he needs to be their boss. The crowd of werewolves cheers upon hearing his statement. The Cross turns to Orpheus. He says that Livia will not have to marry him. Orpheus replies that of course because they agreed and then sharply asks him again. Orpheus asks Cross what he's talking about since he never intended to start a family. Livia asks if that's what they suggested when they talked about an alliance between goblins and werewolves. Orpheus replies that he simply needed strong warriors, and long ago he had heard of the fighting power possessed by the goblin queens. Livia exclaims that she made a big mistake by turning herself into a tragic heroine. Cross replies that in the end, it all turned out quite well. Cross asks Orpheus if he needs strong warriors because of the demons that are growing stronger in the lower world. He replies that this is not entirely true. Orpheus explains that for some of his goals, he needs more than one strong warrior. Cross asks him if he could tell him more about this goal. Orpheus replies that what he is going to talk about is the monstrous past that happened in their village. He tells them that it is the story of a werewolf warrior who was blinded by his sins. A goblin boy asks if everything is all right with Cross and Livia. His friend tells him that the two cannot fail and asks if that is true. Another goblin bursts into their house, telling them that they are in danger. They come out of their house, and the goblin says that a horde of werewolves is heading towards their village. The boy asks what that means, and if he means that Cross and Livia were killed in a meeting with the werewolves. 3 goblins greet a crowd of werewolves who have come to their village. The werewolves bow to the goblins and apologize for any inconvenience they may have caused. Orpheus sits across from Livia and Cross. He tells them that they used to live in a village further north. Orpheus says that at the time his father was their king and he had to decide who would succeed him. Orpheus tells that his father died, or rather was killed by his brother Virtus before he could declare his heir. Orpheus explains that his father wrote his name on a tablet, naming him his heir, and when his brother found out, he flew into a rage and killed him on the spot. The werewolf king tells him that he also accused him of killing his father and they even tried to execute him. Livia replies with regret that it is terrible, and Cross listens silently. The werewolves say that their boss was a man of principle and treated them well. Orpheus points to two werewolves and admits that he was on the verge of execution when these guys from his father's group saved him, so he managed to escape. Orpheus claims that he should have told them first, as they could have put themselves in danger by detaining him. Cross touches his shoulder and tells him not to worry because they have an alliance. Orpheus replies that he appreciates it. Cross suggests that they work on this and think about how to arrange their life in the village. He says that the first is the issue of segregation, which was there before. Cross apologizes to the goblins for the fact that the werewolf tribe decided to move into their village so abruptly. Orpheus asks the goblins to give him and his boys some work, so they can apologize to them for the trouble he caused them. Boy replies that they will not give them work, but another goblin remembers something and interrupts him, saying that if Livia and Cross don't mind. Cross says that he is now going to explore the western part. The goblin asks him if he is going to use his skills to build a house. The young man replies that these werewolves cut down trees and build houses themselves. The goblin is surprised by this. Cross points to the werewolf girl and says that they have someone who has the skill of construction. The girl says that it is nice to meet her and adds that she can only draw blueprints, but is not even close to Cross's level. The young man announces that from now on he wants them and her team to be involved in building houses in the goblin village. And they can also bring other skills such as cooking, farming, and clothing, making to the development of this village. The goblins exclaim that they have never thought about developing the village before. They rejoice, saying that it is quite cool. The goblins surround Cross and ask if they can help him with anything. Cross announces that they are going to cut wood for the houses first. Werewolves and goblins work together. First, they cut down trees in the forest. Then they start building houses in the village. At night, someone in the house suggests celebrating the friendship between goblins and werewolves. They fight each other with mugs. Goblins and werewolves sit at the same table for dinner. Livia approaches Cross and he says that she is just in time. He says that he would like everyone to look their way for a bit. Cross confidently announces that he will give a magical name to the Goblin Queen and Werewolf King. A few hours before, they asked Cross to take up his attention for a while. Cross asks them what happened. Livia replies that she has an urgent request for him. She claims that she knows it's too much but asks him if he can give them a magical name. Cross says he doesn't mind at all. He asks Orpheus and Livia when they will start giving them magical names. Orpheus is surprised by such a quick answer from him. Orpheus says he once heard that it is quite a complicated ritual. Cross says it is not and he just names them. Cross asks them if they are sure they want to keep the magical name as it is now. Orpheus says yes, and Livia says she wants to remain Livia too. Cross thinks about something. Cross announces that tonight they will hold a ceremony in front of everyone to give them their magical names. Orpheus kneels before Cross, who tells him that from now on, he allows him to take the name Orph as his magical name. Cross enters the magical name of Orpheus through the keyboard on the screen. He opens his eyes and, looking at himself, exclaims that he feels a surge of strength in his body. Cross performs the same ceremony with Livia. He says that he allows her to take the name Livia as her magical name. He also types her name on the screen. Livia begins her transformation. She remembers that Goblin told her that her appearance changed after taking a magical name and hopes that she can do the same. She opens her eyes and begins to look at her body. Livia regretfully clarifies to Cross that she hasn't changed at all. Cross looks at her stats on the screen and replies that this is not true as her status has increased significantly. Livia, disappointed, thanks him. Cross approaches the goblins and werewolves who have gathered to watch Cross give magical names to the Goblin Queen and the Werewolf King. He apologizes to them for making them all wait so long. He announces that they will now give them all magical names. They ask Crest with surprise if he is going to give them magical names too. Crest replies that of course he is going to. Cross explains that they will develop the village together, so the status of each villager must also be high. The crowd starts shouting because everyone wants to get their magic name as soon as possible. Cross asks them to say their name first. He tells them not to rush and to stand in line. In the upper world, King Recifal commands his subjects to raise their heads. 3 dukes stand before him, and the king says that he would like to discuss with each of them the current situation in their country. The king says that first, they will start with the House of Habest. The head of the Habest family says that Alibrito is still missing, but they are doing the best they can in their situation. The king interrupts him and says that this is not what he is asking him about. The king asks him if Cross has returned yet. He orders them to send a new search party to the underworld immediately. Cross's father replies that there are so many demons in this area that they cannot deal with them all. Alice's father adjusts his glasses and addresses King Recycle. He claims that if they want to ensure the return of the cross to the upper world, they must send Alice to the lower world to find it. Minu's father denies his words. He tells King Recifal that he thinks Mina would be the best choice to search for the cross in the underworld, since she can act independently without any accompaniment. The king replies that neither is a good choice, as even now Alice is defending the city using her skills from beneath the earthly temple. He says that they cannot be sure that they will not be attacked by stronger demons in the future. Alice's father assures him that Mina will be enough to protect the upper world and asks him to send Alice to search. Mina's father shouts that the upper world needs Alice's skills and he would rather send Mina to search the lower world. Alice's and Mina's fathers argue. Mina stands, wondering when she will see Cross again. In the netherworld, someone tells her to watch the enemy carefully. He tells Livia that her body is carried away after she swings her sword. Livia defeats the garden monster with just her sword. She exclaims that she did it and Cross praises her. Cross reflects on how he gave all the villagers a magical name, so now he teaches them how to hunt and handle weapons. Cross admits that he didn't expect Livia's swordsmanship to go this far. Livia replies that she is surprised too. She explains that the monkeys have been tormenting the goblins for years, and she can believe that her name allowed her to defeat them so easily. The goblin tells Livia that they found some familiar mushrooms. The goblin boy tells Cross that she looks like the old Livia again. They watch Livia, who says something to the goblins about the mushrooms they found. He tells them that ever since Livia met the Cross, she laughs a lot, just like a little girl. The boy asks Cross to continue to be a source of support for her. The young man looks at Livia, who happily waves her hand at him and tells the boy that of course he will. Livia apologizes to him for keeping him waiting. She asks if Cross knows how to eat monkey meat. Cross looks at the beast's body and replies that such flesh is not his. He notices something about the monkey's corpse. A sign appears over the monster's dead body, indicating that it is worth 300 points. Cross is surprised to see it. Livia, noticing his strange reaction to the monkey, asks him if something is wrong. Cross replies that everything is fine. He wonders if they can't see the glasses when they defeat enemies. Cross suggests Livia to continue hunting as they may be nearby. Cross thinks that this cannot be. He shouts to the whole village. Cross reads on his screen that he has 15,000 points and has accumulated Gacha for 33 times. Cross realizes that he doesn't remember scoring points during the day. He also remembers that number, which appeared during the day when Livia killed a demon. Cross assumes that the glasses of the creature he gave a magical name to will go to him. He does not believe this and asks if he is serious. Cross tells himself to be calm. He believes that this is indeed the level that was later revised downwards, and then he got only one. He decides that until everything is fixed, he will pretend not to notice and quickly clean up the mess. Livia suddenly enters Cross's room and asks if she can have a word with him. Cross is startled by the surprise and asks what is going on. Livia asks if he was doing anything before she showed up. Cross says no, he wasn't. He says he was just looking at his Gacha screen. The young man points towards the screen with Gacha and says that the screen is going here. He asks if Livia can see it. She replies that she can't see anything. The girl asks if she can watch it next to him if it won't cause him any inconvenience. Cross says she can, but he doesn't think she knows what she should do. Livia touches her shoulders with Cross and states that just being near him makes her feel like she's starting to understand it. Livia suddenly saw the screen of Gacha. She tells Crest that she saw it too and he is surprised by this. The young man asks her if she is telling the truth. Livia suggests that it is because she touched him. Cross replies that then he can show her what Gacha is. Livia stands in front of him and asks what it is. She sits very close to him and asks him to show her what Gacha is. Crest is embarrassed but agrees to her request. He wonders if this is some sort of custom. Cross muses that after what happened last night, he better not ask too many questions. He suggests that they do the first 11 rounds together. The orbs with powers appear and Livia is amazed. She looks at the balls and asks him if this is the Gacha of skills. She says that it is so sparkly and beautiful and that the rainbow-colored balls look like gems. She reaches out her hand to one of the skill balls. Livia reports that these orbs have started to glow. Cross explains that the orbs in this Gacha have rarity levels of rainbow, gold, silver, and bronze, and the best skills are the orbs that are rainbow-colored. Livia asks if this is Summoner. Cross replies a skill that instantly summons contracted demons to him. He tells her that the rainbow orb always brings an improved skill every month, and in May he already got 3 different summon skills. Livia asks if she can spin again if she gets these 3 types. Cross replies that she can't. The girl asks if she can see all the skills she got from spinning Gacha. Cross agrees to her request, offering to open them all at once. Livia exclaims that there are so many skills. Cross notes that the colors of steel are for skills that enhance abilities, silver for technology, and gold for magic skills, except for the rainbow since it has no limit. The girl looks at the many different skills in the balls. She notices the new skills and asks if there were any. Cross replies that he has leveled up many useful skills, so the results are quite good. Livia asks him, worried, if it could be that the results were worse because she was there. Cross reassures her that this is usually the case when he is alone. He adds that besides, he was here all alone. So for him, it was a lot of fun to figure out Gacha together with Livia. Livia laughs happily and replies that she is happy then too. After a while, Cross calls Livia, but she does not answer. He notices that she has already fallen asleep. Cross muses about the goblin who said that Livia was always so collected as the chieftain, and ever since Cross-sama arrived, she began to look like a child her age. He puts her to bed and covers her with a blanket, deciding that she has played enough gacha and is tired, so let her rest. In the forest, at night, girls are standing and werewolves from the northern village appear before them. They ask the girls if they are here to make an alliance with them. The king of the werewolves, Orpheus' brother, tells them not to compare him to this imposter wolf cub and he may offer alliances. But his only condition is that they be subordinate to him. He tells them to choose. He gives them a choice, either they will be his servants or die right here on the spot. Cross about Orpheus look at the tracks in the forest, which obviously belong to some dangerous and large beast. Orpheus assumes that this sign belongs to none other than the poikin snake. He notices that it is quite large. Cross muses that in order to prepare for their battle with the war wolves in the north, they decided that they needed to assemble a gacha point in the northern region. Cross asks Orpheus if they have reached the territory of the northern wolves yet. He replies that they have not and tells him not to worry about it. Cross asks the werewolf if there are any villages nearby that are not werewolves. He suggests that they could form an alliance with them. Orpheus says he needs to think about it and tries to remember villages nearby. He says he thinks there is a tribe of slime. A big snake notices the slime and starts hunting it. It runs away, but the snake crawls after it to eat it. Orpheus falls on the snake from above and pierces it with his sword. He shouts for it to take. However, the snake moves on despite its wound. Livia appears with a loud cry and a sword in her hands. She stabs the snake right in the head with her sword. The snake, defeated by them, falls to the ground right in front of the slime she wanted to kill. Livia asks the slime if she is okay. The slime replies that she is fine and thanks them for saving her. Cross is surprised. He watches as the normal slime transforms into a girl. He asks if she is slime. She replies that she is and asks who they are. Cross replies that he is a human, but solves problems in the nearby goblin villages. Livia says that one of the goblin queens. They point to Orpheus standing nearby and say that he is still there. The girl is very frightened when she sees Orpheus in front of her. She exclaims that it is a werewolf. She asks if these aren't the same werewolves. The girl turns back into slime. Orpheus asks her to wait a little. Slime sits in a tree and tells them that the wolf tribe that offered them an alliance had been trying to weave them together from the start. She says that many of their people died and their villages were burned to the ground, and now they are hiding in the forest. Orpheus says with regret that this is all his fault, because if he had the strength, then this would not have happened. Cross, after thinking for a moment, asks the girl to do him a favor. He says that he wants them to form an alliance with the werewolves and goblins. The girl considers his offer. She agrees and says that she will accompany them to the slime village. She suggests that they are not the worst guys. They all head to the slime village together, and the girl tells them that whether they get out of the village alive or not depends on their village chief. On the way, Orpheus apologizes to Cross. He claims that it is his fault that the slime hates him. Cross replies that it is not his fault. They go into the cave, and Cross explains to him that it is more important to think about the future than to dwell on the past, which he cannot change. Cross asks the girl if there is a village in one of these caves. She replies that it is right ahead. The girl explains that this cave is full of puddles and has several exits, so it's a good place to hide if they're being followed. Cross muses that they'll have to work hard to catch them off guard. They see a light at the end of the tunnel and go to and the exit. The girl shows that here is their village. Then she specifies that this is a large swamp which is now right in front of them. The slimes start to come out of their hiding places. They discuss that humans and demons have come to them. Then they notice a werewolf. They scream at them to leave their village. Someone says to kill them because they can't let them know that they live here. The girl comes out from under her shelter and tells the people of her village to calm down. She stands in front of the new guests and asks the man who he is. She says that she wants them to know that they are not welcome here. The head of the slime village, in the form of a beautiful girl, tells Cross the Goblin Queen and the Werewolf King that as far as saving the people of their village goes, she for her part sincerely thanks them all for it. She tells that the cross, banished from the upper world, seeks to unite the subhumans and demons. She asks what they want from them. Cross tells her that they want to form an alliance between them, the goblins, and the werewolves. He tells her that while the werewolves from the north pose a threat to the lives of all of them, he believes that they should pool all their efforts together. The young man reassures the girl that Orpheus will not harm their camp. He is sure that they will help each other. The girl calmly tells him that she knows why their slime tribe hates all werewolves so fiercely. But they also have another reason why they don't want to form an alliance with him, the werewolves and the goblins. The leader of the slime tribe looks straight at Cross with his cold gaze and tells him that they, slimes, also hate humans. Cross is very surprised, clearly not expecting such words from a girl. The slime queen asks him if he is from the upper world. She asks him if he has ever heard of Aquafield. He describes the nearby town as an important logistics hub with year-round waterways. The girl notes that it seems like an ideal location. She explains that the slimes were used as servants, controlling the floods during stormy days and committed terrible acts. The girl says that they lived as weak-willed servants, but at the same time they became more and more aware of themselves. She says that they naturally decided to escape from them. She asks Crest if he has any idea how they were able to escape from the people. Cross suggests that they had some sort of transitional magic circle in their country that teleported them all from the upper world to the lower world. The Slime Queen replies that this was not quite true. She tells them that they all fell into the river. She admits that they had no idea where they might go. She says that, hiding from the eyes of their guards, she ran down the river and fell into a large waterfall. She says the next thing she remembers is being washed up on the shore. She recalls that as she lay on the bank of the waterfall, her body had already taken on a human form. The girl, touching her face, remembers the tragedy of the slime tribe because of humans. She hoped to forget the past, but her body turned into a subhuman. She continues her story and admits that she told them everything, even things she shouldn't have told them. The slime village leader asks them if they now understand the reason for the slime's hatred towards humans. The cross warns that the wolves will treat them as badly as the people. The village chief listens attentively. The leader of the slime tribe, having listened attentively to Cross, confidently answers him that he is seriously mistaken in this. The words spoken by her cause an incredible feeling of surprise in Cross. The village chief assures that victory is possible, given the wolves' weak resistance to magic and their limited physical attacks. Cross looks closely at the Slime Queen and thinks that if they were more serious, their enemies would not be so strong. He thinks that she may not express it, but he can tell that this is exactly what she is thinking about right now. He asks the girl if they definitely do not want to form an alliance with them. The head of the tribe refuses the alliance, preferring to solve the problem with the wolves on his own, and asks not to interfere. Cross begins to realize that the slimes are taking a neutral position in this war. He decides that there is no point in trying to persuade the slime tribe to form an alliance with them and tells the village leader that he understands her. Having finished their negotiations, they shake hands goodbye and introduce themselves. The leader of the slime tribe says that her name is Sufi, and the young man says his name is Cross. Cross and the others return. The girl is a werewolf who has the skill of building, and the other werewolves and goblins from her team listen attentively to what Cross tells them. She asks him again if he wants them to build a wall. The Cross asks to build a strong stone fortification with sharp ends on logs, admitting that he cannot manage it himself. The girl confirms her understanding. Cross suggests building a tall observation tower. The werewolf girl, excited by the challenge, promises to try. She asks Crest what is going on. The war with the wolves from the north is about to begin. He tells her that it is not certain yet, but they still need to be prepared, so they all better get to work right now. The girl returns to her team, telling them Cross's words that it is time to get to work. The crowd of werewolves and goblins who are busy building the village rejoice. Cross assigns the goblins and werewolves to take turns guarding the slime village, emphasizing the heightened danger. He reminds them of the agreement to avoid casualties. He announces that they also need to forge new weapons, and tells the goblins who are skilled in the art of forging to get to work. He shouts enthusiastically to all the villagers that it is time to get to work, and the crowd shouts joyfully. Cross, deciding that he needs to go and help the villagers with the fortifications, heads there. Orpheus finds Cross and shouts his name so that he will pay attention to him. The werewolf king Orpheus turns to the young man and firmly tells him that he needs him to work with him. Sometime later, Livia stands in the middle of the forest, excitedly watching a training fight. Cross and the werewolf king fight each other with swords, sparing neither their strength nor each other. Cross's attack knocks Orpheus' sword out of his hands. Orpheus, realizing his defeat in his training duel with Cross, begins to shake with anger and resentment. He immediately asks him to fight him one more time. Cross calmly explains to Orpheus that if he is in such a hurry, he will never learn anything. Cross tells Orpheus that after a short break, they will continue their training. Orpheus tells him that he feels his status has increased significantly since Cross gave him a magical name. However, he remembers his brother Verd, who mercilessly killed their father. Orpheus admits that he will never forget the way he looked at him after he killed their father, the former werewolf king. Orpheus states that he should not be like his brother. Orpheus laments that he cannot defeat his older brother, who is the leader of a tribe of fighting wolves from the north. Cross begins to think about what they can do about it. After some thought, a new idea comes to Cross. Cross asks if Livia and Orpheus have studied fencing. Orpheus replies that he only studied for self-defense and that Livia has never studied fencing. The young man asks the werewolf king if he has noticed anything interesting in the sword duels they conduct to practice their skills. Orpheus becomes thoughtful and begins to remember his and Cross's past sword fights. He tells Cross that during their sword fights he felt like he had a certain fluidity that he always kept. Cross, with a smile on his lips, says that he is absolutely right about that, and that is what is called fencing. Cross explains to the Goblin Queen Livia and the Werewolf King Orpheus that during combat, he combines his practical skills with his magical skills. The young man says that, for example, he uses his fire magic to improve his body and increase the speed of the attack he makes. Orpheus, surprised, clarifies that he can even do that. The Cross describes the water sword's ability to predict the enemy's movements and defeat him with a single blow. Livia is delighted by this ability. Cross suggests focusing on strengths, skipping fencing due to lack of time. Livia supports the idea. Orpheus remains silent. Cross turns to Orpheus, waiting for his answer. He says that he is not sure if he can do it because he has always had difficulty with magic, so he has fought using only strength until now. He assumes that he will not be able to live up to their expectations. Orpheus cries and tells them that he still wants to stop the atrocities of his older brother and avenge his father and friends, whom he mercilessly killed. He claims that there is nothing wrong with his desire. He, in terrible despair, turns to the Cross. He asks the young man to teach him fencing. Cross reassures Orpheus that he has no reason to worry. He consoles his friend by stating that he is sure that Orpheus will become the greatest of all werewolves. At the same time, in the Upper Kingdom, in the estate of the ducal family of Havurst, an incredibly loud scream is heard, which can be heard even outside their home. Cross's father, the current head of the Havurst house, screams in horror, explaining that it turns out that his second son, Alibrit, was kidnapped by female goblins from the Nether Realm while searching for Cross. The secretary reports that Alibrit was robbed, maimed, and taken into the forest. Alibrit's father is shocked by what he heard. The head of the Havurst family suddenly begins foaming at the mouth, and his eyes roll back as if he is about to faint. One of his sons, frightened by his father's condition, turns to him. One of the sons of the head of the house, Havurst, shouts at him, calling for him to calm down and come to his senses. Not far from them, someone is watching this situation. Leon Havurst, fourth son of House Havurst, claims that Alibrit told him he had some secret plan, and now this is what it led him to. He believes that along with the Cross, he has become a disgrace to the entire House of Havurst. He mockingly comments on Lyon's expedition into the underworld with the Knights, calling them a group of amateurs with weapons. The fourth son of the Havurst family bursts into someone's room and, with a malicious smile, asks those present there whether he is not right in all this. He turns to Marnis, a girl with glasses who is one of the maids of their house. She stands in the middle of the room he has entered and tells him that he is absolutely right. The girl is smiling. However, Leon suddenly slaps her so hard that her glasses fly off her face. A red mark appears on Marnis's cheek from his blow. The girl remains silent, patiently enduring such an attitude towards herself. Leon is displeased and asks Marnis how much longer she intends to remain in her human form. She quickly apologizes to him, calling him Master Leon. In front of him, instead of an ordinary girl with glasses, a fox appears who looks very much like a human but has fox ears, a fluffy tail and very long hair that almost reaches the floor. Leon claims that she is a fox. He reminds her that he asked her not to take human form when she is alone with him. He tells the girl that if she tries it again, he will kill her on the spot. Marnis apologizes to him. Leon decides to drop the subject. He asks her if his stones are ready. The fox girl immediately takes out a small box with many stones and says that she has them all. She carefully holds the box with both hands and shows him all the stones. She begins to explain to him that they will temporarily enhance the magic in his body. She assures him that these are very powerful magical stones. Leon takes one of the stones in his hands, examining it from all sides. Marnus tells him that these magical stones also have the effect of neutralizing harmful elements from the lower spheres. Leon, still holding the magic stone in his hands, looks at the girl with a distrustful look. She declares that she is sure that these magic stones will be able to justify all his expectations. Leon Haverst interrupts their conversation about magical stones and asks his maid how much she remembers about the Haverst cross. Lisa believes that Cross Haverst is Master Leon's younger brother. She says that with all due respect to him, she knows nothing more about him than that. Leon is confident that even a fox with magic will not be able to resist the servant's collar. He is glad that his fears about her actions were in vain. Leon announces that tomorrow he will go to the underworld and bring Cross back home. He tells her to be sure that everything is ready for this. The girl replies that she understands his order. Marnus, with a smile on her face, tells Leon that when he returns from the underworld, she hopes that he will become the next head of the ducal family of House Haverst. Leon yells at her to shut her mouth. He tells her that he doesn't need her anymore, so get out of his sight. Lisa hurries out of the room to leave him alone, apologizing to him along the way. Leon stands alone in the middle of the room, breathing heavily with growing anger. Leon, smiling maliciously, promises to become the head of the Haverst house and take cruel revenge on Cross for the humiliation. The students of the academy discuss the upcoming mock battle between Cross and his older brother Leon. The host announces the start of the duel, confident of Leon's victory. All the students of the academy who came to watch the sword fight between Leon and Cross are amazed by what they see. The crowd discusses Leon's defeat, suggesting that he was out of form or simply not strong enough. Meanwhile, back at the Goblin and Wolf villages, Cross claps to get their attention and announces to the working villagers that there is enough work for today. A werewolf boy notices that he is sweating more than usual today, and his friend tells him that he is not the only one. The Cross approaches the king of werewolves, Orpheus. He turns to Orpheus and tells him that his fire sword style is becoming more precise. He asks him if he thinks so too. Orpheus disagrees with Cross's words that his fire sword style has become more accurate, and tells him that it has not yet. Orpheus holds his iced drink in his hands, and explains to Cross that if there is even the slightest crack of the catastrophic energy that his older brother was releasing, he will be consumed by it in one fell swoop. Cross says it's a little late to ask him, but asks Orpheus what his brother Verd's ultimate goal is. He assumes that the leader of the Northern Werewolves wants to conquer their entire region. Orpheus tells him that perhaps his ultimate goal is to fight back against the subhumans in the north. He tells him that the further north you go, the stronger the demons and subhumans that live there. He adds that the ways his brother uses to coerce people to follow him are through threats of violence and fear. Orpheus agrees that some werewolves have betrayed him, but he is certain that most of them are simply afraid of his older brother and follow him only because they have no other choice. Cross replies that he sees this. Cross regretfully states that he would definitely help them if it were possible for him. Orpheus, having listened to Cross, feels some surprise. Cross notices Orpheus's strange reaction to his words and asks him what happened. Orpheus tells him that he thought he was different, and Cross asks if that's true. The Werewolf King looks up at the clear blue sky and thinks deeply about something. Orpheus, continuing to watch the clouds in the sky, suddenly tells Cross that in his youth, his older brother was very kind and strong. Cross's eyes widen in surprise at Orpheus' revelation about his brother, Verd. Cross asks Orpheus if what he just told him is true. Orpheus sits down on a nearby tree stump and tells him that he has been a pretty good older brother to him. Cross thinks that this is simply amazing. Cross listens attentively as Orpheus reveals that he does not know exactly when his older brother went mad. The Werewolf King suggests that it all happened too quickly and too many times. Cross suggests that if they figure out the reason for this, they can stop this whole fight. Orpheus, after hearing Cross's suggestion, thinks about it. He whispers that maybe they can even start living again. Cross, not hearing him, asks again. Orpheus tells him that he said nothing important and tells him to forget about it. The king of the werewolves states that they must now gather strength for the upcoming events. The Cross turns to Orpheus, intending to tell him something. However, he feels someone's presence behind him. Goblin grabs him by the hair and starts pulling it in different directions. Cross starts screaming that it hurts a lot. Goblin sits on his neck, grabbing his hair, and Rufuna spins around him. Cross asks them what they are doing and yells at Goblin to stop pulling his hair. The Werewolf King assumes that Rufus and Goblin want him to play with them. Cross holds down the disgruntled Goblin, who he managed to get off himself. His hair is still sticking out in all directions. He asks her if it is true. Goblin answers him with undisguised indignation in her expression and tone. Cross says that he has been training so much lately that he hasn't been able to pay attention to them at all. He apologizes to them for this and promises that he will fix everything. Orpheus watches this whole situation of Cross and his friends with a smile. Orpheus tells Crest that he will go then. Crest holds Goblin in his arms and agrees with him. He watches Orpheus walk away from him, thinking about something. Cross muses that he doesn't know if Orpheus and his brother will have a second chance, and if they can fix all this. He thinks that he would definitely prefer it to be possible, but also considers the possibility that they won't be able to. He realizes that if they cannot reason with his brother, who is the current leader of the tribe of fighting wolves from the north, then Orpheus will have to stop him at any cost. At an aristocratic academy, a student in the dean's office asks why he is the only one who failed the knighthood exam. The principal tells Crest that he heard that he bribed the students to lose to him in their duel. Crest asks him what he is talking about. He confidently states that he did nothing of the sort. The director says he is sorry about this, but he will be punished accordingly. Cross asks the director of the academy to listen to him. Someone hits Crest hard in the face with a fist. The brothers beat Crest, calling him a disgrace to the family. They demand that he confess his ingratitude, but Crest denies the accusations. The Cross raises its gaze. He notices Leon standing around the corner, who watches this with a malicious smile. Cross wonders if they, the brothers, can start all over again. He thinks it is impossible because the brothers hate each other. Someone calls Cross, but he, deep in thought, does not immediately respond to the call. Cross suddenly wakes up with a look of fear on his face from his dream where his brothers were beating him. Someone calls his name in concern. Cross sees a girl's face right in front of him and asks if it is Livia. Livia, worried about him, asks if he is okay. She tells him that he does not look well. Cross slowly sits up and tells Livia that he is fine. He tells her that he just had a really weird dream. Livia says that she understands. Cross regretfully realizes that he can still see them. He decides that he will need some time to recover. Livia tells him that something happened in their village. The werewolf carries his badly injured comrade, telling him to hold on. He screams for someone to bring him a potion. The werewolves surround them, feeling worried for their comrades. Cross runs up to them and shouts, asking them what it was. The werewolves answer that their village used to have 3 fighting wolves from the north. They say that they are very sorry because they screwed up and they found them. The werewolves scream that they will never forgive them. One of the werewolves asks them how they managed to come back from there alive. He, still holding his hand to his wound, tells him that it is all thanks to their daily training. Cross thanks the werewolves for their report. He turns to Livia and Orpheus and asks them to step aside with him for a few words. Orpheus, Livia, and Cross walk away from the rest of the villagers, and Orpheus, with surprise in his voice, asks Cross again if they missed on purpose. Cross replies that they were following them to figure out their base. He turns towards the forest where the wolves from the north are supposed to be now, and uses his skill called Senses. He feels the energy of 3 fighting wolves from the north in the forest. He says that it is definitely them. Cross suggests to Orpheus and Livia to intercept them on their way to the camp. Orpheus and Livia immediately agree with him. 3 war wolves from the north head to the village to deal with the goblins and werewolves. Suddenly, a huge wall appears from underground, preventing them from going any further. They curse, saying that a wall of earth suddenly appeared right in front of them. Orpheus turns to the wolves, saying he hasn't seen them for a long time. The wolf with glasses recognizes his voice. Orpheus sarcastically apologizes and says he won't let them go. The wolf laughs. He clarifies that isn't the younger brother of their king, Orpheus, in front of him now. He asks him how he likes the chair of the leader of inveterate mediocrities. Orpheus looks at the wolf with undisguised malice in his gaze. Cross announces that he is the head of the organization that Orpheus is currently working for. He tells the wolf that if he has anything to say, then let him say it to him. The werewolves laugh maliciously, saying that they are surprised. They claim that the talentless man was turned into a domestic dog. Cross and Livia begin to get angry at the werewolves' words, but Orpheus tells them to listen to him. Cross turns to Orpheus, asking what he meant. Orpheus tells Cross that the 3 war wolves have a terrifying aura about them. He senses their aura and tells his comrades that they have the same one as his older brother. Orpheus says that he has a very bad feeling and asks Livia and Cross to be more vigilant. Cross, having listened to the request of the werewolf king, tells him that he will remain on guard. The werewolves say they have no need to run from a werewolf like him. They confidently declare that they will cut off his head right here and now and bring it to their true king. The werewolf in glasses suggests his friend to simply use this thing. He takes a stone out of his pocket and replies that he completely agrees with it. Orpheus is astonished, saying that this cannot be. Cross turns towards Orpheus, not understanding why he has such a strong reaction. The werewolves eat their stones and Orpheus screams, asking if it was a magic stone. The werewolf, having absorbed the magic stone, says that now he can become as powerful a werewolf as the king. He begins his transformation, which brings him terrible pain. The ground beneath him breaks, and he himself roars loudly from his transformation. Livia and Cross look at this with their mouths open in surprise. The server's werewolves are getting bigger and stronger, and Cross is asking what's going on. 3 werewolves who previously had a more human appearance turn into real wolves. Instead of a head, they have a wolf's muzzle, and claws have grown on their hands, but their torsos resemble a human's. Cross, seeing what they have become, curses. He asks what this is. One of the battle wolves starts to attack them. Cross screams, alerting his comrades that it is approaching them. Livia attacks the wolf with her sword, the wolf that attacked her. She stabs him deeply in the torso. Her eyes widen in surprise. She sees that the wound she literally inflicted on him heals instantly. Livia warns Cross that the wolves have grown stronger thanks to the magic stones. Cross fights back and advises him not to give in to their pressure. He yells at Livia to remember her usual training, and Livia firmly replies that she will do so. The huge werewolf growls loudly and swings his paw at Livia, who is half his size. The girl closes her eyes and begins to concentrate. She uses her skill, Water Blade, and attacks the monster with it. She stabs the northern werewolf right in the chest with her sword. With the tip of her sword, she hits the magic stone that he absorbed to become stronger and completely shatters it into small pieces. By hitting this stone, Livia kills her opponent. The stone explodes right in the wolf's body. She yells at Cross and Orpheus, telling them to aim their attacks at the magic stones that are inside their bodies. She claims that if they destroy the magic stones, they will go out of control. The Cross shouts to her that he understands, and they will do exactly as she told them, and Orpheus also agrees. They fight the remaining werewolves. The mark of the exploded stone remains on the bodies of the wolves. 3 dead werewolves lie on the ground next to each other. Orpheus, Livia, and Cross say that they managed to destroy them all. Cross says that if they don't return, the base will notice that something is wrong. He suggests that they may come to investigate the area in the near future. Orpheus is deep in thought, so he doesn't immediately respond to Cross's words. The young man, noticing that something is wrong with Orpheus, turns to him and asks him if he is okay. Orpheus, with regret in his voice, answers him that these guys do not know what mercy is. Orpheus explains that, in fact, a stranger once approached him about a deal involving a magic stone. Cross is shocked that Orpheus has encountered magic stones before. Orpheus remembers the situation when a man approached him, hiding his face with a hood on his head, and offered to buy him a magic stone. He tells Cross that he did not recognize the face of the seller, but he called himself a vampire. Livia explains to them that vampires and foxes have magic. She tells them that they can also make various magical tools. Orpheus explains that his father was a man of chivalry and hated magical tools, which is why they rejected this vampire seller. He says he had no idea that he was selling magic stones to his brother behind his back. He looks at the wolves they killed and says that they are no longer human but demons. He claims that it is madness to allow the younger generation to wear such a thing. The Cross begins his speech in front of the village. He announces to the villagers that they have killed the northern werewolves nearby, but they too can expand their search area, so he asks them all to be on guard and continue their diligent training. Cross thinks that it is better to keep quiet about the magic stone for now, because if they scare them away, it will lead to the opposite effect. Cross realizes that with their current power, the worst that could happen is that they would be wiped off the face of the earth. Cross announces to Orpheus that he is heading to the slime village. Orpheus, who clearly did not expect this, is surprised by Cross's decision. Orpheus asks Cross if he is still going there on the topic of their alliance. Cross replies that that is one thing, but first they need to share with them their information about the magical stones that the war wolves of the north possess. He reminds Orpheus that Sufi told them that they are weak against magic, so magic stones and other magical tools can pose a strong threat to the slime's life. Orpheus says that Cross is right, and they should tell the slime tribe in advance about the magic stones that the war wolf tribe from the north uses, and maybe they will even change their mind about creating an alliance with them. Orpheus asks Cross if he can come with him to the slime village. Cross says he can't. He explains that he actually has a meeting scheduled for today. Rufuna suddenly starts barking somewhere nearby. Cross complains that Goblin's training has made her resentful of him. Today, they were planning to explore the forest, as Orpheus mentioned. He turns to Rufus and says that this isn't quite what they originally planned, but they must leave now. He asks his wolf Rufus where Goblin is. Rufus barks back at him. Cross asks Rufus about Goblin's mood and is about to summon demons. Rufus shakes his head, arguing against it. Cross asks Rufus what he's doing. He doesn't have to do that. Rufus responds with his own barking. Cross asks him if he suggested that he follow the scent and find her. Orpheus, who has been listening to the conversation all this time, realizes that he understands him. Cross is concerned about the movements of the northern wolves and has instructed Goblin to report danger. He accepts Rufus's offer and goes with him. He puts a bottle of potion and a small cape around his neck. Cross tells him that he will give him potions just in case, because suddenly something happens. He asks Rufus to take him to Goblin. The wolf enthusiastically agrees, and they set off, leaving the village. Many petals from beautiful flowers float in the air in the forest. A goblin sits in the middle of a field of beautiful flowers, busy with something. She weaves a wreath from the flowers that now surround her. She looks at the wreath she has made and dreams of giving it to Cross, and him stroking her head as a sign of gratitude and praise. Suddenly, someone's hand appears behind Goblin. Lion Haverst, Cross's older brother, grabs Goblin from behind by the back of her head and roughly lifts her into the air. Goblin tries to turn around to see who is doing it. He angrily asks her if she is the goblin woman who beat up his brother Alibert. Cross asks Rufus if her scent disappeared along the path he and Rufus took to find her in the forest. Cross asks him if he really doesn't smell anything at all, and the wolf confirms this with his barking. Cross thinks about this and decides that this is all quite strange, because Rufus' sense of smell must be quite well developed. He looks at Rufus closely, seeing his obvious distress about this, and cannot understand how Rufus' nose could not work, since she also has a demon name. Rufus lets go of his ears and barks pitifully, telling him something, and Cross, worried, replies that he is absolutely fine. He tells him that it just so happened that his nose didn't work today. Cross suggests to his wolf, Rufus, to simply follow them to where he last smelled Goblin, and the wolf agrees to his offer. Lion, Cross's older brother, continues to hold Goblin tightly by her head, squeezing it tightly. Goblin screams in pain from the pain he is causing her. Behind him are his two knights, as well as the two mages he took with him to the underworld to search for his brother. Lion says that it is extremely surprising to him that they are not visible at all yet. Goblin tries to get out of Lion's grip and screams furiously from the pain he is causing her, squeezing the back of her head tightly with his hand. A special smoke comes out of the small cups in the hands of the magicians, and Lion explains that absolutely their entire territory is already blocked, thanks to this smoke, from the conductors of the lower kingdom. Lion tells Goblin that if she doesn't want her skull crushed by his hand, she'd better tell him if she recognizes any of the faces circled in the portrait, and shows her the frame with the portrait. The Goblin looks at the portrait of the Haverst family, with Cross's face outlined. Lion tells her that she seems to have quite a high status for a goblin. He asks if she can at least tell him if she knows any of these people. Goblin's eyes widen as she spots Alibert, the second son of House Haverst, Crest's older brother, whom she already knows from his battle with Crest when he tried to bring him back to the upper world. She, trying to get out of Lion's grip, brings her hands back and with both hands grabs him hard by the hand with which he holds her head. Lion asks her what she is doing, and Goblin squeezes his hand tightly, not intending to let go. Lion tells her that it is useless and that she cannot harm him in any way now, not even a hair. He tightens his grip on the back of her head, digging his nails into it until blood appears, and Goblin lets go of his hand, screaming in pain. Lion demands answers to her questions, threatening to cut off her head. Goblin cries and tries to break free, but he holds her tightly. Lion throws her roughly to the ground, cursing. The knight approaches Lion and asks him if he is okay. The young man replies that he is fine. He assures him that she could not have done anything to him anyway. He watches the cowering goblins and wants to say that this is why they demons, but does not have time to finish. He notices that she suddenly takes out a bottle with some liquid inside and drinks it completely. The knights exclaim that it is a potion, clearly concerned that she drank it. They wonder where she could have hidden it from them. Goblin wants to attack Lion, who didn't expect this from her. She is already advancing on him when the knight punches her hard in the stomach. The knight says that he will not allow her to touch Master Lion. Goblin falls to the ground at Lion's feet, writhing in pain. Lion says that a goblin with a potion is quite a sight. He orders two of his knights to ask her where the cross is. The knights claim that they will force Goblin to tell them where the cross is. They are known for their cruelty and they make her afraid. Cross and Rufus continue to search the forest for Goblin. He calls out loudly, calling her name and asking where she is, but no one answers. Cross wonders what's going on. He realizes that it's not just Rufus' sense of smell. He can't believe that he can't use his skills like detection technique or summoning anymore either. He remembers that his search has not worked, as with the war wolves from the north they defeated this morning. Cross realizes that the situation is constantly changing. He decides that he should have been more vigilant. He scratches the back of his head nervously, starting to worry and asking himself what he should do now. Cross's eyes widen in surprise as Rufus approaches him. The wolf comes close to him and hugs him with his tail. Cross, not expecting this, just stands there not moving. He tells his wolf that he is calm because of him. He believes that it is at times like these that he needs to remain calm. Rufus barks back. Cross looks into the eyes of his wolf and tells him that he sees light in his eyes. Rufus suddenly emits a bright light, surprising Cross. Cross asks what it is, but Rufus himself does not know. He uses one of his skills called Assessment on it, which allows him to see the status of the demon bound to him, and by seeing something on the screen, his status. His eyes widen in surprise. The flowering field where Goblin was picking flowers to weave a beautiful wreath that she intended to give to Crest turned into a terrible picture. The beautiful flowers were stained red with drops of her own blood. Goblin, covered in deep, fatal wounds inflicted on her by the Knights of Lion, trying to force information about the cross out of her, lies in a pool of her own blood, completely motionless. Lion asks the Knights if they have received information about the cross. The Knight apologizes, noting the captive's stubbornness. Lion orders his Knights to go into the forest to look for his younger brother Cross, while he himself will wait for him at this place. The Knights respond that they understand his order. Suddenly, an empty bottle of potion flies somewhere. An empty bottle of the potion that Goblin recently drank flies right into Lion's back. He turns around to see with his crazy eyes what happened and who threw this bottle at him. Goblin stands up in front of him, covered in blood from her wounds, looking straight at him with a terrifying and determined gaze. Lion, enraged at her, attacks her with his magical attacks to finish her off. He makes several holes in her body with his attacks and she falls to the ground. He screams with fury in his voice that this is enough. The goblin lies dying in a field of flowers while Crest's elder brother cries out, listing all these goblins and knights he brought here and this fox servant and the Haverst and Crest family. He screams furiously why they can't all do what he wants them to do. He wants all of them he listed earlier to stop annoying him so much. Lion tells his knight that the next time they try to deceive him or fail to live up to all his expectations, he will kill the fox and all their families. The knights apologize to him in fear. The petals from the flowers begin to rise into the air. The air lifts Goblin into the air among the petals, and her wounds instantly heal. The onlookers are amazed. One knight calls her a goblin with healing powers, but Lion claims that it is her skill. Lion looks at the petals from the flowers that surround her, and suggests that she gets a lot of life force from the environment. The knights mistakenly believe that the goblin has the skill Herbalist. Cross speculates that demons only have skills unique to them. He realizes that if this is true, then she must have a very rare skill. The mages are shocked and say that this is impossible and ask how she could have broken through the smoke and used her skill. The mage, cut in half, does not immediately understand what happened. He looks at the remains of his comrade, trying to comprehend what happened. He calls his comrade, but before he can come to his senses, he too is killed, cut into several pieces. Lion and the knights are shocked by such a sudden and unnoticed murder of their magicians. Rufus comes out to them. Rufus' appearance changed due to the transformation he underwent in the forest. The knights notice the wolf and wonder if it was he who cut down the two mages. They do not understand how the demon was able to get into this smoke. Lion watches the current situation and is very unhappy with it. He thinks that this cannot possibly be happening. Goblin glows in the air, attracting the attention of the knights. They are surprised by the glow. Cross activates the demon evolution technique, and Goblin begins to transform. Goblin begins to evolve. All of her wounds that she received earlier in the battle heal, her hair becomes longer, her torso becomes stronger, and she herself becomes much stronger. The knight laughs, hiding his excitement from her, and tells her that he, of course, did not understand what had just happened to her. However, he was just thinking that he had not tormented her enough. Suddenly, this knight gets hit in the face by Goblin. The blow is so strong that his teeth fly off. The Goblin kicks him so hard that his head is torn from his body and flies back a couple of meters. His comrade, in shock after such a sight, looks at the head of the dead knight, which landed right next to him, and does not understand what just happened. He looks at the headless body of his comrade and asks how this happened. He says with regret that he just got married the other day. The knight, enraged, begins to shout at her, how could she do this to him? He laughs hysterically and assures her that now she will not be able to hurt him anymore. The goblin is next to him, and the ground beneath her cracks from her physical strength. She hits him with her palm in the area of his stomach. Her precise, direct strike passes straight through the knight's body. With her attack, she instantly kills another of Lion's knights. Lion, who watched as Goblin single-handedly defeated his knights, realizes that she allowed her blow to penetrate his body and ruined his armor. Goblin stands after killing two knights of Lion who were tormenting her. Suddenly, someone calls her name. She turns around, hearing a familiar voice, and notices Cross. He immediately runs into his arms. She happily hugs him and says something to him. Cross hugs her back and says he's glad she's okay. Cross, continuing to hug Goblin, realizes that the plants surrounding them were medicinal herbs. He is glad he can appreciate them. Cross notices the smoke that has robbed Rufus of his sense of smell. He recalls that he was able to cut through the smoke thanks to the wolf's unique olfactory skills that he gained through his evolution. But then the reason why his summoning and detection technique didn't work was different. Leon approaches Cross from behind and tells him that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Cross, hearing a familiar voice, turns around to look at the man. Cross, turning back, notices in front of him the fourth son of the Hazure family, his older brother Leon. Cross turns to his older brother, who looks at him with a crazy look. Cross asks him if he has come to him in the underworld to bring him home, as their brother Alibrit had tried to do earlier. Leon remembers his father's words about Alibrit and claims that his father said that he was in league with the goblins. Cross tells him that if he knows so much about everything, he knows that he has no intention of returning home to the upper world. He admits to Leon that he was thinking of letting him go so that he would go back home safe and sound. Goblin notices Cross clenching his fist in anger and says that, however, he now wants to tell him something. Cross threateningly warns his brother that since he and his knights have suffered greatly over Goblin, he should not think that now he will be able to return home to the upper world safe and sound. Leon, after listening to Cross's speech, begins to laugh loudly and hysterically. He stretches out his shirt and shows Cross the magic stone, which is located right in his body just below his chest. Crest immediately recognizes this thing that has grown into his brother's body. He is surprised and feels excitement. Leon says that this is what he understands as brotherly spirit. He admits that he has no desire whatsoever to do anything for these people from the upper world. Leon, with a crazy look and smile, confidently declares that he came to him in the lower world to kill him. Leon stands in front of Cross and goblins in a flower field in the forest. Cross thinks that he knew it was a magic stone. He looks at his brother and realizes that he was the one who sabotaged all the skills he wanted to use earlier. Cross calmly asks his brother where he got the magic stone in the first place. He tells him that he thought magic stones were very difficult to find in the upper world. Leon answers Crest that his old servant Marunas created his magic stones for him. Crest, hearing his brother's answer, is amazed. Cross remembers Marunas, the subhuman fox who was his servant when he still lived at the Haverst estate. He reflects that he always thought she kept her true fox identity a secret from everyone but him. Cross notices that the magic stone has merged with Leon's body, but he retains his sanity. He fears that his brother may go mad like the northern wolves. Crest comes to his senses and decides that now is not the time to sort things out with Marunas, his former servant. Cross notices that the magic stone has merged with Leon's body, but he retains his sanity. He fears that his brother may go mad like the northern wolves. Cross mentions that foxes create magical artifacts, but the stones have side effects. Leon mockingly asks if Cross is upset about losing his maid. Leon smugly claims that Cross was the only one in the upper world who was so incompetent as to trust subhumans. He tells him that they first gave her to sinners and servants, and then got rid of her. Cross decides that he had to resort to some trickery. Leon adds to his words that although it was extremely unpleasant for him to swallow something that was left behind. Leon attacks Crest, exclaiming that all this is only thanks to him. Leon attacks Crest with a magical attack. The young man does not have time to dodge and the attack hits him. He is thrown back, but the attack does not cause any serious damage to him, and he lands on his feet. Leon tells his little brother to look at this, because all this luxury and power, it's all for one thing: revenge on him. The elder brother of the Cross advances on him and shouts at him that the humiliation he once experienced in the upper world because of him will be nothing compared to his humiliation. He attacks Cross with his hand, but he blocks it with his sword. Leon intends to attack him again, yelling at him to get them. Leon continues to attack him, striking him multiple times and using only hand-to-hand combat. Cross fights off his attacks with his sword. The Cross falls to the ground on purpose. He pushes off from her with his hands and hits his older brother with both legs at once, but he manages to block it. Cross attacks Leon from the air, accompanying the attack with his loud scream. Leon manages to notice his attack. He puts his hand out to protect himself from the sword attack. The sword didn't leave a scratch on his bare hand. The Cross, seeing this, realizes that it has become stronger. Taking advantage of Cross's confusion, Leon attacks him and Cross flies back. Cross turns to his older brother Leon and tells him that he does not know the true nature of the magical stones he uses. Leon does not understand what Cross is telling him. Cross claims that skills are a power given to them by the Almighty God, and the Demon Stone is nothing more than a miracle created by humans and subhumans. Leon laughs, saying that he lectures him as soon as he realizes that he can't win. He demands that he prove his godly power. The Cross looks at the distraught brother and answers him that if he insists on it, then he will do it. Cross punches his older brother Leon in the face. The blow from Cross was so strong that steam came from his hand. Cross attacks Leon using his physical enhancement skill, leaving Leon struggling to stay on his feet. Leon laughs evilly as his wounds from Cross's blows heal on him, challenging his younger brother to try something stronger against him. Leon recovers completely from his blows. He hysterically screams at him that his skill doesn't work against him at all. Leon asks his junior if his power is godlike. He declares that it is now his turn and crosses his arms. Leon uses a skill called Wind Cutter to attack Cross. The air currents are directed towards Cross. Cross uses his slant attack skill and uses his sword to reflect his attacks so that they hit their owner. The air currents that Leon himself created cause numerous cuts on his body, but they don't touch him because he covered his face with his hands. Leon stands in front of Cross, who is clearly surprised by what is happening. Cross asks his older brother if he remembers. Cross asks Leon if he remembers the last time he challenged him to a duel. He asks Leon if he spoke of revenge that day. Leon, not expecting such words from Cross, is surprised. Leon begins to shake from the anger he feels towards his younger brother and asks him what it means. Cross has not forgotten this. Leon starts yelling at Cross, saying that he must be joking. He asks Cross if he thinks that the whole range of his humiliations is only related to that day, when their duel at the academy took place. Cross stands silently, listening to his brother's cries and does not answer his questions. Leon starts to go crazy. He grabs his head and screams at Cross that he is always like this, that he always looked down on him and stole absolutely everything from him. Leon prepares his new magical attack to attack Cross and declares that he will never forgive him. He tells Cross that he will execute him right here and now. Leon uses his skill called Tornado to attack his little brother. The tornado heads towards Cross, who muses that he didn't think Leon could create such powerful wind magic. He realizes that, as he thought, the effect of this magic stone is terrifying. Cross realizes that with the increase in mass and rotation speed, his thrust is low, so he decides that it will be easier for him to dodge this attack. Suddenly, a knight appears behind him, intending to grab him. The knight holds Cross's arms so that he cannot dodge or escape from Leon's tornado attack. He looks back and sees that the knight who grabbed him is just a knight's body without a head. The Cross, frightened, asks what it is. Leon, who also did not expect this, is surprised. He watches this and begins to laugh, saying that this is very good. He tells the headless knight to keep up the good work. Meanwhile, the tornado created by Leon is already very close to the Cross. Rufus blocks Leon's attack and Goblin crushes the knight's heart. Leon is surprised by their appearance and gets angry. The Goblin is saved by Crest from a beheaded knight. Crest thanks them both and notes that the knights used magic stones. Cross believes that it was only after the destruction of the entrails that he stopped moving. He decides that as long as the knight's heart is intact, the magic stone can control his body. Leon curses, and Cross comes up to him and asks him if he now understands what he told him. Cross tells his brother Leon that the headless corpse of his knight helped him, but the magic stone he swallowed is an extremely dangerous thing for him. Leon looks at the stone in his body and begins to shake from the pain his magic stone is causing him. The Cross tells him to go back home to the upper world while he still has his wits about him. He claims that he can't help him in any way, but the fox maid can. Leon doesn't want to listen to him and shouts at Cross to shut his mouth. Leon, completely out of his mind, takes out all the stones he has and holds them in his palm. Cross is surprised that he has even more stones. Leon looks at the magic stones in his palm and says that he can't lose to him anymore. He swallows all his magic stones at once. Cross, shocked by his brother's actions, shouts at Leon to spit them out immediately. Leon starts laughing hysterically. He looks up at the sky and spreads his arms out to the sides, waiting for his strength and power to come to him. The Cross begins to experience some kind of ominous and frightening feeling. Leon continues to laugh hysterically. He begins to transform, his face twisting, and he states that he can feel the magical power from the magical stones bubbling within him. Leon's body can't handle the flow of magical power that the magical stones he ate gave him. His brain explodes, blood pours out of Leon's ears, eyes, mouth, and nose. He falls to the ground and lies in a pool of his own blood. Cross, shocked by this sight, stands motionless. Cross approaches his older brother and looks at his bloody corpse. Leon lies in a pool of blood, and Cross realizes that the body could not withstand the magic stones. Cross thinks that at this rate he could get out of control very quickly. He decides that this is why they should stop his heart quickly. He looks at his older brother with regret. He tells Rufus and Goblin that hatred can drive a person to this state. Cross uses his water sword style skill, and intending to pierce his older brother's heart with his sword, bids him farewell forever. The stone suddenly becomes illuminated with light. Using his magic, he tears off Cross's left arm up to his shoulder. Cross lets go of his sword, not fully realizing what happened to him. The goblins, seeing that their master was mortally wounded, screams loudly and Rufus howls pitifully. Cross flies back away from Leon. Cross loses a lot of his blood due to his arm being torn off. At this time, his older brother gets up. He starts screaming loudly. Leon grows bigger, gains huge wings, and completely transforms into a scary, huge monster. He is incredibly large, his ears are pointed, and he has 2 horns on his forehead. Cross sees Goblin and Rufus trying to tell him something, but he can't hear them. He realizes that he won't be able to use his skills against the approaching monster. The Haverst brothers' mother says, holding little Leon on her lap, that in a little while he will have a little brother or sister. She tells him that then he will become a good friend to them. Leon laughs happily and tells his mother that he loves her very much. Little Leon closes his eyes against the rising wind. He finds himself in a void and starts looking around for his mother. He calls her and asks where she is, but all he gets in response is silence. Leon, who has turned into a terrifying monster, remembers his mother and begins to cry bitterly. He begins to scream loudly throughout the forest from his mental pain. Leon screams throughout the forest. He goes in search of his missing younger brother and calls him, asking where he hid. A fresh trail of blood which belongs to the wounded Cross leads to a small, dark cave nearby. An empty potion bottle lies on the ground. Bitter tears roll down Goblin's cheeks. Goblin watches as Rufus desperately licks the dead Cross's face. She looks at his arm, severed at the shoulder, and asks something. Goblin cries and reaches out his hand to touch Cross's face. He strokes his cheek, not believing that he is dead. Goblin's eyes flash with determination as she places her hands on Cross's chest and speaks. Rufus watches in pain. Goblin realizes that Cross is truly dead. Goblin begins to shake with sobs. Then she screams loudly, not believing that Cross is dead. Rufus, who is watching them, also begins to cry. Suddenly, a message appears near Cross's severed arm, stating that the loading of the emergency program has begun. Emergency maintenance is in progress due to a malfunction in the skilled demonic technique. Requires a lot of life energy. Success depends on the level of demonic mastery. Details are in the journal. The system signals that emergency maintenance has begun. The floor begins to glow, causing concern for Goblin and Rufus. A bright, glowing orb appears between Cross's shoulder and his severed arm. Suddenly, Rufus and Goblin howl loudly. The loading of a second blood transfusion begins, which is already at 50% out of 100. His shoulder and arm are starting to recover. The face of the Cross, deathly pale and lifeless, in an instant takes on a more animated appearance. The system announces maintenance is complete. Goblin and Rufus breathe a sigh of relief. A sudden cough echoes through the cave. Goblin turns to Cross. Crest continues to lie down but uses his skill called light magic. A hovering orb appears above them, emitting a bright light all around them. Rufus and Goblin look up at it. Cross clarifies that they did save him. He calls Goblin and Rufus and with tears in his eyes sincerely thanks them for saving him. Rufus is happy to see Cross alive and Goblin begins to cry with happiness. Cross hugs Goblin and Rufus tightly. They hug him back, saying something to him. Cross touches his body where his arm was torn off and says that it is amazing because there are no marks on his body. He claims that you can't even tell if someone attacked him. Cross remembers Leon and asks Rufus and Goblin what happened to him. He remembers that he thought he was going to kill him. Rufus and Goblin start answering him, telling him what happened. Cross, after listening to his friends' answers, becomes thoughtful. He tells them that his older brother is clearly cursed. He claims that the magic stone blocks the probing technique. Suddenly, Cross begins to feel a headache. Cross finds himself in a place where his older brother Leon stands behind him near someone's grave. Cross' eyes widen in surprise and doesn't understand what happened to him. He turns around and sees Leon Haverst with a bouquet of flowers. Leon tells his mother that it was he who came. Cross begins to realize that he has entered into memories that belong to Leon. His older brother tells his dead mother that as soon as Cross disappeared, his brothers began to attack him. He watches as Leon carefully places a beautiful bouquet of flowers on their mother's grave. He assumes that his older brother's memories are being sent directly to his brain due to the flash of the magic stone. Cross stands behind Leon and listens as he speaks to their mother's grave. He tells her that as soon as Cross was born, she died. Leon claims that their entire family is cursed. Leon explains that his brothers can't get along with each other because as long as Cross is alive, their family will be haunted by misfortune. Cross listens to Leon, feeling some kind of regret. Leon gets to his feet and asks their mother that she is watching over them all in heaven. He turns towards the Cross and confidently declares that he will avenge the humiliation she suffered from him and get even with him for her death. Cross returns from his older brother Leon's memories back to reality. Leon's face shows determination, while Cross's face shows nothing. He is completely indifferent. Cross says that the demon stone is blocking his abilities, but it is not blocking Leon's abilities. He tells them that memories of his other side are flooding his head, no questions asked. Cross wonders if being alive is a crime. Goblin asks him something. Cross expresses his displeasure by saying that he has heard it all before. He claims that he is extremely tired of hearing it all the time. Cross turns to Goblin and Rufus and apologizes to them for that. He says that they will have to stay with his older brother for a little while longer. Cross says with all his determination that the three of them will stop him. Goblin and Rufus support him, saying something to him enthusiastically. Meanwhile, Leon finds a trail of Cross's blood, which leads him straight to the cave where Cross, Goblin, and Rufus are supposed to be hiding. Leon begins to destroy the cave by pounding it with his huge fists. He asks Cross where he is. Suddenly, Leon hears Cross say that he is there. Leon turns around at his cry, but Cross is nowhere to be seen. He starts shouting again, calling him to come out. Not far from him, he notices Rufus, who is looking straight at him with determination. Leon shouts, asking Cross where he is. The wolf continues to look straight at him with determination. Leon tries to grab Rufus. Rufus uses his skill called Howl, which creates a dome around him, preventing Leon from getting close to him. Leon, upon touching the dome, freezes in place. Cross shouts at Goblin that it's time for her to act. She immediately runs out of her hiding place. Cross, advancing on Leon, muses that Rufus' unique ability temporarily encases the target in a golden bridle. He shouts at Leon that it's over for him. Cross and Goblin attack him together with a loud cry. Cross and Goblin hit him right in the magic stone in his body. They destroy the magic stone, and it falls off Leon's body, crumbling into pieces. Leon's body explodes in the chest area where the magic stone used to be. The magic stone turns black and disappears into thin air. In the forest, Goblin, Cross, and Rufus watch as Leon's body begins to slowly evaporate. Cross realizes that the reaction to the enormous flow of magical power is causing his body to become sacralized. He believes that even his skills can no longer stop this process. He turns to Leon. The Cross says that he has already severed all his ties with the upper world, so he doesn't care what happens to him now. He admits that he just feels sorry for his mother. He says that he really does regret it. A dying Leon looks up at the sky when he notices something in the distance flying straight towards him from the sky itself. It gets closer and closer to him, and Leon's eyes widen in surprise as he begins to realize who it is. His mother appears in front of him with large angel wings, opening her arms to him. With the last of his strength, Leon calls for his mother. Cross is surprised, asking if his mother has come for him. Leon, who had almost disappeared, starts laughing and says that it has finally happened. His mother touches his face, and he tells her with a happy smile on his face that he met her first. He claims that from this very moment, they will be together forever. Cross, Goblin, and Rufus watch intently as Leon completely disappears. Cross looks at Leon disappearing with their mother with sadness and regret. Cross approaches Rufus and Goblin, asking them to go home. His friends happily agree. The maid asks Merle to wash the window, and she agrees. Merle ponders Master Lion's return from the underworld while washing the window and overhears a conversation about the death of the children of the head of House Habest. Servant collar that Leon had placed on Merle to subjugate her is removed and falls to the floor near her feet. Merle picks it up off the floor, examining it. He realizes what has happened to her, and her eyes are filled with anger and determination. One of the maids, noticing Merle's strange behavior, asks her if something is wrong. She says everything is fine. She lies that she just has some fireproof trash there. She says she will go and throw it out. The maid tells her to deal with it. Merle destroys the servant's collar, declares Leon dead, and transforms into a fox. She promises to come to Master Cross.